The Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Mr. Tweed, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Here.
Ms. Gold, Mr. Khan,
Here.
Mr. McPartland,
Here.
Mr. DiArpino,
Here.
Mr. Oster,
Here.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. Would you please turn your microphones on? I forgot to mention that to everybody, please, okay? All right, so first up, we have the approval of the minutes from the January 14th, 2018 meeting, which were included in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McPartland. It looks like seconded by Mr. Oster. Any corrections or comments at all? I have none.
I had one on line 271 where we talked about the public hearing coming up tonight for this property. I think we should add on the sentence, so it should read, Mr. DiArpino stated that he, Ms. Gold, and Mr. Oster closely examined this proposed zone change when developing the 2013 comprehensive plan.
Okay. And I remember discussing the comprehensive plan.
Just so it doesn't sound like we reviewed it before the presentation.
Yeah, I think that was actually stated at the meeting as well.
Good.
Any other?
It's not in the
Modifications?
minutes, but I remember you saying it, yeah.
Yeah, I do also. Any other modifications? All right. All those in favor of the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. The minutes are unanimously accepted. And we'll move on. So we have a public hearing tonight, public hearing for the rezone application for 500 Balltown Road from R2 medium density residential to neighborhood mixed use. Mr. Tweed, would you please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the zoning ordinance of the Town of Niskayuna, New York, and the applicable provisions of the town law of the state of New York, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna in the Town Board Meeting Room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 28th day of January 2019 at 7 p.m. to consider an application from the Town of Niskayuna for a petition for a change of zoning at 500 Balltown Road, is shown on a map entitled Application for a Change in Zoning by the Town of Niskayuna relative to the following. For a change of zoning of certain lands from R2 medium density residential to NMU neighborhood mixed use. The project site is approximately 43.8 acres. The property is located in the R2 medium density residential zoning district. All parties in interest and citizens will be given an opportunity to be heard by the planning board at the public hearing to be held as aforementioned. By order of the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna, Kevin Walsh, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Twitty. He's going to do double duty here and give a quick presentation. Then after the presentation, then we'll open it up to public comment. Okay.
All right, so again, my name is Jeff Twitty. I'm an assistant planner here with the Town of Niskayuna, and I'm going to go over what the town is looking to do with the parcel at 500 Balltown Road, also known as the OD Heck facility, rezoning it from medium density residential to neighborhood mixed use. So just to give an overview of the site, it covers, like I said, 43.8 acres, all currently in the R2 medium density residential zoning district. It's bordered on its west side by Balltown Road, and thereafter by the city of Schenectady, which has its version of low density residential. They call it single family residential. To the west of the parcel, to the south is Mohawk Commons, what we call here a commercial shopping zoning district. To the north is, sorry, I have to check my own notes here. We should probably go here. Sorry about that, just going to start over. So currently it's owned by New York State, and because of that, it is immune from zoning. But that could change should the state ever vacate the property. And also another fact about it, it is located in the South Colony Central School District. So it's surrounded medium density residential to the southeast, low density residential to the northeast, shopping center commercial to the south or Mohawk Commons, neighborhood commercial to the north or Hannaford Square. And in the city of Schenectady to the west, it is single family residential zoning, and to the northwest in the city of Schenectady as well, mixed use commercial. So right now the zoning that it has, R2 medium density residential, primarily allows for single family homes. Most of the town is what we know as R1, which is low density residential that requires larger lot sizes. And medium density residential, it's smaller, more condensed parcels, around 9,000 square feet is what we look for at a minimum. So when you think this neighborhood, or when you think this zoning, think neighborhoods like Old Niskuna, the Country Club neighborhood, and Route 7 east of Mohawk Road. So the primary use is really all residential, all single-family homes with special pockets and special uses for churches, hospitals, and nursing homes. So when the town looked at the OD Heck parcel and the 2013 comprehensive plan, one of the things they focused on is, what if the state ever leaves this property? The people making the plan didn't think that the most appropriate use, should the state ever vacate, would be another R2 zoning district, especially given traffic on Balltown Road. So we looked at alternatives. And in 2017, we came up with something called neighborhood mixed use zoning. And what that zoning really promotes is walkable streetscapes, open spaces, interconnected streets, and a variety of housing options for residents. So allowable uses in a neighborhood mixed use zone, it would be kind of in this little diagram we have here. I know it's tough to see, but there's a mix of residential and commercial with multifamily residential, single family residential, and even some mixed commercial and residential buildings. On top of that, there's also open recreational space and combined office uses for things like retail, banking, hospitality, and community services. Special uses are pretty similar to R2 with some, few bigger things like indoor recreational facilities, but also smaller things like nursing homes. And right now, there are no neighborhood mixed-use zones in Niskuna, but there are a number in some surrounding municipalities. Here's one in Latham, right off Route 9, about a mile up from Siena College. It's called the Villages at New Loudon. So what they have here is right off of Route 9, they have a variety of dining options, a few stores, a few boutiques. And if you go further back, they have a few townhomes, and it's kind of hard to see in that bottom picture, but on the left side, there is a gate that separates the housing side from the commercial side. But again, it's everything commercial is within walking distance for the people who choose to live in those townhomes. So it's easy for them to get around, and it's a connected space. Here's another example. This one is Elmsworth Commons in Malta, also off of Route 9 in Saratoga County. And how they do it is they kind of stack everything. We probably wouldn't see this in Niskuna because we do have regulations for the height of our buildings, but they'll put shops and restaurants on the ground level. And above that, they will put apartments, condos, and kind of how they fill the extra space because, they go vertical is they put in a green park area with benches and trees and a nice community for the residents to kind of live, work, and play in. So the benefits of neighborhood mixed-use zoning really comes down to community, connectivity, and convenience. The community aspect comes from the allowance of open and public space that, is really fostered through neighborhood mixed-use zoning. It allows people to really go out and experience their community, meet their neighbors, and, really it allows them to have a greater sense of belonging in the place that they live. Connectivity, neighborhood mixed-use zoning places I want to say premium on pedestrians. So it's not hostile, or it doesn't drive away, excuse the pun, car users or drivers, but it places a real focus on the pedestrians that we don't see in a lot of other zonings in Niskuna. So it's very connected. You don't need to have a car to get around. And convenience, I keep coming back to it, but there's a big live, work, play aspect to this type of zoning. And it allows people to really get to point A to point B, whether it could be from their home to the grocery store, or, if they need to run a couple of errands in a day, it allows them to get around in a convenient way that doesn't make them have to drive across town to complete a couple of errands for the day. So some anticipated concerns. We do expect some people to kind of be hesitant to this new type of zoning because of Niskuna's residential character overall. But rather what we see this new zoning as is a new opportunity for the town. It's something that doesn't require our residents to be so vehicle dependent. We're all seeing the numbers. Fewer and fewer people are buying cars these days. So we really want to kind of usher in some kind of space where people aren't required to have a car to get around. There's also concerns that more development will increase traffic, especially on this part of Balltown Road. Right now, we're just considering the zoning for this parcel, not any particular development. We honestly don't even know if this parcel will get sold by the state. We just want to make sure that if it ever does, that the town will be in a position to follow its comprehensive plan. Also, another concern we're anticipating is that people will be concerned that, this will diminish quality of life in Niskuna. In the planning department, I'm sure, and also in the town, we don't necessarily see it that way. We see it as giving people a new alternative, new housing alternatives, essentially. We have a demonstrated demand here in town of people who want to, live and work, close to people who want to experience a variety of amenities in the places that they live. And we feel like there are some real opportunities to be had in a neighborhood mixed use zone. And with that, I'll open up the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Twitty. So this is the public hearing on the rezone of 500 Balltown Road. So we'll open the floor to hear what you have to say, any comments you have. Just mention that tonight there's no action being taken on this. It's basically the public hearing. We want to listen to what input we can receive from the public. We'll make sure we, obviously get that documented. If we do go forward, we would go forward with a resolution making a recommendation that the town board perform this rezone when it does go to the town board. And if it goes to the town board, they would also have a public hearing. So you'd have another opportunity at that public hearing to be heard also. So with that, I'll open the public hearing for the rezone application for 500 Balltown Road. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
William Janicki, 3712 Consall Road. At the first meeting, we asked to have a zoning change. And the response was, we can't do that. That's spot zoning. Across the street from us, there are 112 apartments. Behind us were 48 townhouses, and we're accused of doing something that would change the neighborhood. And basically, it took my wife and I 4 to 5 years to get the approval to put the condos there. And again, the first excuse that we heard, that would be considered spot zoning, and we don't want to be accused of spot zoning, is what we were told, all right? 4 to 5 years, over $100,000 to get the approvals. In the meantime, that was part of my wife and my obligation, or what we felt we could retire with. She can't be here today because of a health issue. So that set apart our issue as far as when we could retire by 4 to 5 years. And what I'd like to have someone explain to me how the town, who didn't want didn't want to be accused of town zoning, is now encouraging it. I'm pretty ignorant, I guess, when it comes to being able to have somebody explain this to me. So that's the objection I have, to have somebody explain to me why it's good today and why it wasn't good to people who were residents of the community at that time for about 125 years. And it really put us at a great disadvantage. Now we're 81 and we have some health issues.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. And just for everybody's information, tonight, also on discussion items on the agenda, we will have like a follow-up discussion. We will possibly talk about some of the things we heard tonight if we do have answers at that point in time on the agenda. Okay.
My name's Nicholas Chiesa. I live in the area that's going to be rezoned. I thought that we would be able to ask some questions before we got into the public comment.
You can do is you can ask your questions. We're not going to respond to them. We may not have all the answers
Okay.
right now, but we'll document all the questions, and that's something that the planning department and this board will evaluate as part of
Okay.
our
So
recommendation.
I'll ask the questions and then I'll go into,
And by the
I
way,
have basically 10 questions.
right, and if you have them written, you're always welcome to give them, and we'll make sure we
Right.
put them with the record too, okay?
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, would you mind just restating your name and
My name's
address?
Nicholas Chiesa, Chiesa. And I live off of Balltown Road. My first question is, who's requesting a change of zoning and why, which I kind of understand it's the town of Niskayuna. But I question, why is the town of Niskayuna considered a party of interest when the town is not the current owner, purchaser, contractor, nor the developer of the property? How does the town have standing vis-à-vis the proof of interest to submit the zoning application. What does NMU neighborhood mixed use specifically mean? You know, they, in the zoning code, it doesn't define what non-residential commercial businesses is. And what they did there is they just said it's retail. What kind of retail? You know, could it be a Walmart supercenter? What kind of retail are you talking about? So what is acceptable in an MU mixed use and what is not acceptable? Has an environmental impact statement been completed and submitted? Has a traffic study been done? Has Schenectady County been notified of this change of zoning? This impacts not just the town, but the city of Schenectady and Schenectady County because the property is next to the city of Schenectady residential district. Has South Colony School District been notified of this change in zoning? Along with the properties of Taurus Road, the OD Heck properties in the South Colony School District. If apartments are built with school-age children, this would affect their school enrollment numbers. So that's the basic 10 questions I had. So now I'd like to speak against the zoning. I'm speaking against the zoning change for the following reasons. First off, you're putting the cart before the horse. It's not necessary to change the zoning at this time. There's no change in ownership of the property. When the property is sold and changes ownership, then an application should be made by the new owners with the specific project they have in mind. There are wetlands that must be protected. A new zoning would allow any owner, including the present owner, to remove the wetlands for development. The wetland should be forever protected by designating the wetlands as an LC, land conservation. Balltown Road has single-family residential properties outside the OD Heck property. By allowing mixed-use zoning, commercial development can take place. Balltown Road is already a very busy thoroughfare. There are no curbs, sidewalks, or enough space on a shoulder of the road to even walk. The town of Niskayuna and the planning board loses control of what the present owners or new owners can develop because essentially mixed use means anything goes. This zoning change negatively affects the character of the neighborhood. A decision to change the zoning should never be done without considering the environmental impact of the change. A draft environmental impact statement should be done. In conclusion, the property should be parsed to first protect the existing wetlands now and in the future. Second, to allow specific areas of commercial development and specific areas of existing R2 residential development. The entire 43.8 acres should never entirely be designated as mixed use. A detailed proposed project plan should be submitted before any application for a zoning change is considered. Lastly, I believe there is a conflict of interest by the town board members pushing this. They are asking their own appointed planning board members for approval. They are unjustly enriching the state of New York by increasing the property value by this zoning change by creating an, quote, anything goes mixed-use zoning that is essentially shovel-ready upon sale. I find it very odd that the state of New York is not the petitioner on the application. The present R2 zoning should stay. It is consistent with the surrounding residential zoning and provides a buffer between the existing commercial development zoning and the existing residential zoning. I say wait until a property is actually sold so the new owners can present their project plans and, if necessary, a request for zoning change can be discussed along with public input. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Lisa Chiesa, C-H-I-E-S-A. 126 DeWitt Ave. right off of Balltown Road. So my concern, I have all the concerns my husband stated, but also mine is environmental primarily. We saw old growth forest torn down, the Sanford House, which was a historic property, pulled off its foundation, so it's no longer can be on the historic register, all to put in a bunch of things which are not needed, don't get much business, are duplicated for the most part across the street in the Mohawk Commons Center. And we have a big box Walmart store sitting vacant, which is unsightly and hazardous in some ways. That could be developed in some way. I don't think you need more commercial development on the OD-HEC site. If you really consider preserving the wetlands, there would not be that much room for a mixed-use kind of place where people could, walk and perambulate. And I had heard years ago, just by rumor, when the state was thinking of if they were to sell it, what would happen? They were thinking that the existing footprint would be there so that the buildings would be condos or townhouses or something just on that footprint, not to expand over the entire property. I think it would really significantly change the character of the neighborhood, which already it's been detrimental when they tore down the old growth forest. We have now pests, we have more air pollution, we don't have a buffer. The residential housing in that area has been impacted. We have a lot more lights, noises. So I really am all for preserving the wetlands on the OD-HEC site. And if anything were to go there, I think it should be residential, possibly townhouses. And I have a great concern, again, as people have stated, that the rush to do this, I'm not sure why there's really such a rush to do that. And I think it will significantly change the character of the neighborhood. You have two schools on Council Road, the Brown School and the Page School. The increased traffic if you were to put businesses in there. So again, I think it's too hurried. And as my husband stated, there's no need because the state is not even thinking of selling right now. And so I'd have to say, and again, my primary concern too was for the wetland and that it be residential if it were to be developed at all. So that's all.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Hamlin, 3405 Consall Road, just down the road. I agree that this should stay residential, not commercial at all. There's way too much traffic, speeding cars up and down Consall Road. Very seldom are the police out there. I do let them sit at the end of my driveway, but Consall Road's getting worse and worse all the time. And I'm afraid if you have more commercial there, it's going to get worse and worse. I do walk up Consall Road, and sometimes it's a little scary. I've talked to other people who walk up there in the wintertime when there's no place to jump other than a snowbank, and I can imagine it's very scary for them. We have plenty of commercial space, some vacant. I agree that we should concentrate more on filling those spaces before we build more commercial space that gets empty. So again, I just agree that it should stay residential only. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does this work?
Yep.
Oh,
We got
okay. My hearing's going. Excuse me. Lorene Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. We've lived here 42 years, not quite as long as you. But OD-HEC has been there. OD-HEC, as we know, is declining. There certainly is an interest in that amount of property sales tax for us. That would certainly help. I do think, as one gentleman said, we are putting the cart before the horse. We don't really know the thinking of the state. I think this whole public hearing is a kind of a time waster. I'm sorry to say that it's taking up your time and the time of the neighbors, because this probably won't even come to the board before another 5 years. There's a huge financial debt that is associated with OD-HEC. So a developer that would be interested in coming would certainly have to refinance with the state. We have no state people here. We have no county people here to address the traffic problems with the state road, which is a 2-lane road, a county road, which is Console Road. We don't seem to have an awful lot of information, and the fact that I don't blame you, you can't answer questions because we really have no plan. We have nothing to discuss. You want to throw a plan into these 32 acres or 45 acres, I don't know. And maybe down the road, that plan isn't going to be the right plan. So you're going to have to go through a rezoning and all of this progress again. I do think it's a little, how should I say, anxious for you. And I don't know why. There's so many things that need attention and so many problems that we have with existing buildings and traffic and all of the things everybody notices. Now we've got Knott Street to consider. This particular public hearing, unfortunately, is a waste of time. You have no idea what the state is thinking. Has anyone I'm sorry, I know you don't answer questions. If the chairman had met with one of the commissioners or an authority of the facility and they had some inkling, I would say, yeah, give us that information. But we're in a blind haze here. We don't have any traffic controllers. We don't have anybody telling us what's going on. And I think that taking up our time, hearing all of the things that we're going to have to come back because the zone or the applicant is probably going to be thinking up a whole different scenario for that property, if in fact they ever do. The only thing that I am worried about is that the state could say, I'm going to put a reform school there, or I'm going to put a minor correction facility there. And we will have nothing to say about that because the state already has the property. I do wish that we had a little bit more information before we're taking up your time on this public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daryl Bray, 1420 Van Antwerp Road. I kind of echo all the sentiments of everyone else. It seems like I like the cart before the horse. I like that one. And I've talked to you guys and honestly know most of you pretty well, and I really appreciate the vision. Jeff did a great job of presenting something that I thought was wonderful. And I think it's a great vision, but like people have said, I mean, as far as we know, we don't know what's going to happen. And while I trust you guys and your vision and what you believe very strongly, there's a very good chance none of you are going to be sitting there when this comes up, and what interpretations will be done that we are now, it's out of our hands to a certain degree when we allow the changes. I don't know if there's a certain percentage of each type of property that you would prescribe, if that's written in statute or if that's just as it goes. The point about the Mansion Square is a good one. I was not in favor of that. I don't know that if people feel like that was a success. Whenever you add in commercial space, you're increasing traffic. It's already pretty bad over there as it is. The crime potentially with any sort of commercial space, why the urgency? I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe you don't know either. I assume it's been discussed since 2013. This is an ongoing thing. So it's not new, maybe for you guys, but I feel like when you already make it mixed use before we know what the potential is going to be going in there, it makes me a little hesitant to think that You know, we all know how laws and things can be interpreted in different ways by different people. And if it's not you guys are interpreting what was the intention of what you intended when you made these changes, you know, is it possible the people that are now interpreting those things are people that maybe have a different point of view? So it makes me nervous. I can't necessarily say it's a bad thing because I don't really know. And I did appreciate the presentation. It was very nice, and I thought you did a very good job. But I'm just not sure that that's really what's going to happen, I guess. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, Michelle Lansing, 1468 Via Del Mar.
Michelle, can you just pull it down to the people that,
There
yeah,
you go.
I don't know.
just a little lower. Now you're good.
How
You
I
don't have
did
to
that.
lean into it. It's just, yeah.
Just okay. I think what I want to know as a resident of Niskayuna is why. Why now? What's the thinking behind it? It sounds like there's been an idea developed, but I'd rather know what is the thinking behind having a mixed use facility there. You said that there is a need. Where is that need stated? What research has been done? What study do you have that shows that there's a need? If we open this door here, I don't live in that neighborhood, and I know a lot of times that people only care about what's in front of them, but I care about Niskayuna. And I continue to see growth in Niskayuna that I don't understand. I don't understand why we have 2 mattress stores in a corner where there used to be beautiful woods. I don't understand why we have empty storefronts, but we talk about putting new ones up. I want to better understand this vision that is supposedly exists. I read the 2013 plan, but I don't remember this being a big part of it. So I think before we can ask anybody to judge if this is a good idea, I think we need more information on the background of where this committee is coming from in saying that it's necessary and that it's a good idea. Because as a lot of people have stated before me, we don't know. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph Hatter, 2053 Lexington Parkway. I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to anything that will bring more traffic to Balltown Road. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, 1360 Balltown Road. There was a mixed-use proposal there. That's a section, there's a wooded section north of CVS and south of the TV station. And it was knocked down. People, well, for many reasons, but one of the main reasons, I think, was because of the traffic that it brought to Balltown Road. Balltown Road is a basket case. It's much too small. It should be 4 lanes. It's not. It's 2 lanes. And any additional traffic on it will just make things worse. Down by the crosstown connection, Route 7 and then Balltown Road. I waited there to make a left turn from Route 7 to head on Balltown Road north. I waited there 6 minutes because there's a major traffic jam there at Balltown Road and Route 7. And all the way up, going through the section by old Niskayuna. You have a light in front of the school. It's supposed to be a demand light. If the people come out of the school, the light turns red and they allow them out. But that thing goes on and off, just like, and nobody's there. I mean, the lighting on Balltown Road there's nothing coordinated. That should be coordinated with Knott Street. Balltown Road is a mess. Any additional, this will bring additional traffic to Balltown Road. And any additional traffic to Balltown Road, you gotta fix Balltown Road first, and it's a state road. They probably don't even know where Balltown Road is, half of them. So opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Georgiana Carney. I'm at 1465 Via Del Mar. Once again, this is not my neighborhood, but I would like to ask a few questions. I'd like to know why this is being brought up right now. Who brought it up? Who in the town is asking that we start zoning things before anybody even is interested in moving into them? I question this whole process. We've never done that before, as far as I know. We've always looked at a plan and decided whether it was good for a neighborhood to go and do something like this before anybody proposes any plans. Turning something into a mixed use, does this open up back behind Channel 6 again? Does that mean they can come in ahead of time and start asking that all their land be changed? I mean, it just opens us up in the entire town as far as I'm concerned. I don't like it, and I'd like to know where it came from. This is a plan that's being presented as if the town of Niskayuna wants to do this. And who in the town wants to do this? Who in the state has asked for this? OD Heck has been there forever. It is falling apart. I was in there recently for a meeting with someone. I mean, it's not in good shape. It's not in good condition at all. But I cannot see that we go in there and give a blanket zoning change to a good part of Niskayuna. I mean, it is kind of commercial down there, just like we live in Old Niskayuna on the other side of Balltown Road, and people keep telling us that's commercial. It's been there forever. Well, our homes have not been commercial, and we've been there forever. So I just have a question as to why this has come up now, who's brought it up, and why anybody thinks we should pre-zone things. Mixed use is a wide open field. Who knows what mixed use actually means? Maybe you guys do. I'm not saying you don't, but I just don't trust it, and I object.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sure. We got time for you. Any comments? We're glad to hear. Sure.
Chairman Walsh, I mean, if it was an applicant, we would sort of invite them back up, or do we not want to? No, okay, no, just kidding.
Excuse me. An applicant?
Well, I was just thinking, does the applicant sort of come back up with a public hearing at the end of a public hearing?
No, usually, no, usually
Yeah.
we close the public hearing, and then later on the agenda, the discussion portion, we can talk a little bit. All right. And, and when we can talk some more. I know we have a lot on agenda tonight, so I appreciate everybody's patience and bearing in there, hanging in there with us.
However, we do ask the applicants to answer as many of the questions they can from the public.
And we'll try.
Yeah. Maybe we should move the agenda item up. I don't know.
Yeah, we could do that.
I'm okay doing that.
We can move, let's see, what else we got tonight? But, we also have other applicants here too that, I guess usually it's first come is how we set the agenda. So we're not trying to make everybody stay here late, but we try to be respectful to the applicants when they file to be on the agenda also. So let me close the public hearing. Thank you for your comments. And let's move on to agenda, and we'll see if we can keep it going along to get there. How's that? All right, so next is privilege of the floor. So it's if anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna is welcome to come to the microphone and state what your concern is, or all the good things you want to tell us. How's that? Looking at Mrs. Avon there.
Lorraine Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. It just occurred to me, if you're looking for some busy work, I'd like to find out just how much land we do have left in Niskayuna for development. I know we have some farms, not big ones. They're in R1 neighborhoods. I know we have probably some sizable lots that could come in for subdivisions. And I think that the town would like to know where we stand in the future. We're only 14 square miles. Most of our town is roads, going in and out. We've caused most of our own traffic by making it very convenient. The state's put in a 5-lane road on Route 7, and that has increased the traffic tremendously. Maybe when we had the trolleys, we didn't have as much traffic. Now, of course, every time we do an improvement, we seem to get more traffic. I hate to remind the board, which is all a very young board, we're a residential town. Our taxes are not low. We pay for our taxes, not so much in the town tax as we do on our school tax. But the fact is that the town fathers, realizing what our basic Niskayuna town is not a commercial Soho kind of development. And that's what I think this multi-use thing would end up being, with its multi-use structure, apartments. You probably would even change our height zoning ordinance, as you did by giving a variance on the Union Street, which I found very, very objectionable. Union Street and that whole business has changed the complexion of that section of Union Street. And most of us, again, in the future, probably won't see anything happen to OD Heck unless a tornado or hurricane makes some changes. But there are so many things that I wish the planning board would do. Now, I know we're probably not due for a comprehensive plan, but that may be a very interesting study. And I did discuss this with the planner today, and that's an architectural review board. We're putting things in this town that truly are apparent to me. We don't seem to have anyone that seems to be interested in the finesse of this town. And some of the things that are being created, I can't say single-family homes, that's different. But I just find that we're losing our grip. And maybe we're not getting the people here that really care about where they live or how they live. But the rest of us that do live here, and I'm not quite sure what our population is, about 22,000, and 8,800 residences, that's gone up. Tons and tons of apartments. Why? Apartments are not stable as far as our town is concerned. They come, they go. This is great. We all lived in apartments to get started. But just as a little word of advice, I'd like to live here a few more years, but I'd kind of like to see the town have a purpose and maybe not trying to find purposes, but take care of some of the ones we already have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Chiesa, 126 DeWitt. One of the themes I noticed about when they were talking about the public hearing is Balltown Road. And I would seriously like you to consider widening Balltown Road, particularly between Council Road and State Street. There's, at least to make it 3 lanes, 2 lanes with a turning lane all the way through. Because, and having either curbs or wider shoulders, because you cannot walk on that road. It's 35 miles an hour. It should be reduced to 30 because it's a residential district. On the one side, it's impossible to get into Balltown Road, particularly during, commuter traffic. It's impossible to walk the road. The road is only, it has a shoulder of about 2.5 feet. And when they recently repaved the road, they put gravel on the one side, on the OD Heck side, but they didn't put gravel on the city of Schenectady side. And there's all kinds of ruts because the post office, the postal people, they pull to the side to deliver mail because they cannot walk from door to door on that road. The garbage people pull to the side. So what it is that, instead of putting gravel on the shoulder to allow it, a slight pullover. There's no gravel, so it's soft dirt. And it's just ruts. You can't even go to the side. And then there's also no way for the snow to go. So by having a wider road, at least from Council to Balltown, because beyond Council, most of the residential areas are on the right. But it would be helpful to even have it all the way to Route 7. Because this way people can pull out and they can pull into the various roads on the side. But, you're talking about mixed use and pedestrian friendly and stuff like that. As it currently stands, Balltown Road isn't pedestrian friendly, and it's certainly not bicycle friendly. You take your life in your hands when you walk, and I do walk it because I do live on a block that I can walk to things, and it's impossible to walk. So I think that there should be a concerted effort to look at Balltown Road, at least create 3 lanes, a turning lane, wider shoulders, if not curbs. I was surprised that when they put the new Price Chopper in, that they didn't require Price Chopper to put in a sidewalk. So people can walk to it. So that's something I think that the planning board should consider. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Daryl Bray, 1420 Van Antwerp Road. I'm going to try to make sure I put this down afterward next time. It's interesting that a couple people mentioned the widening of the roads and pedestrian safety. I tend to kind of think about it the other way. I'd rather the roads not be widened. I would like to see bike lanes, sidewalks, things of that nature. I probably ran about 900 miles through the streets of Niskayuna this past year, cycled about 1,500 miles, mostly on the bike path, but it's hazardous to be on the roads at times. My son and I almost got hit running out in the evening, just in the dusk. And specifically, I want to talk about the project on the corner by the co-op and the widening of that road, but also all the other projects, which has basically increased the traffic flow, which in my mind basically means it makes the traffic go faster out of Niskayuna, which in some respects is good, but it's traveling faster. And to me, when I'm on the roads running, it feels less safe when cars are traveling faster. Certainly not a planner. I don't know what the studies say about safety regarding adding a 3rd lane. To me, if the cars are going slower, I feel safer that I can judge what they're going to do. But when traffic's moving faster, you have people trying to pull out and they're accelerating quickly. They're not really looking. It's kind of scary. We had a presentation at the town board couple months ago about Dean Street, about how the road's too wide, so people feel more comfortable and they drive faster, and the road should be more narrow. I would like to see measures taken to slow traffic down, not speed it up, because I feel like, I've got a son that walks to school. I don't know if your kids walk to school. I know some of them probably did at some point. And people are in a rush. I mean, you see it all the time over by Mohawk Commons in that area. I know it's 35, but cars are flying. And, maybe it's time to consider, rather than trying to speed them up, figuring out ways to slow them down. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Privilege of the floor?
Joseph Haver, 2053 Lexington Parkway. On Balltown Road. It's a poor road. It's not wide enough for the traffic that it has to handle. And this project that you were talking about before will add traffic to it. But the traffic that's on it now, They have apps in your car now, and it'll tell you real time what the situation on Balltown Road is. And if the situation is bad, say down around Union Street or Route 7, those people heading south on Balltown Road, well, they'll just make a right turn right into Old Niskayuna, and they'll go down Lexington Parkway, they'll go down Baker, they'll go down to Dean, which doesn't need any extra traffic. They'll go down to Regent. They'll travel all through Old Niskayuna. And now Old Niskayuna is, what is it, R1? Is it, no, it's R2. R2. All right, that's a little bit more dense. All right. So, yeah, and they have children there. Right on my road on Lexington Parkway, they have right next to me, I can throw a stone at their houses. They have something like 11 children. They have 5 in one, 3 in the other, and 3 in the other. Yeah, 11 children. Only one of them goes to the high school. The rest, there's about maybe 3 going to middle school, and then the rest of them go to the grammar school. So they're still young kids. They play on the median there. They do a little football or whatever ball game they play. A ball goes out to the road. They run after the ball. They don't look at the cars going down Lexington Parkway. I have a little gadget that I bought. It's used to measure the speed of a pitched ball, and you can measure the speed of a car. And since they fixed up Lexington Parkway, it's a nice smooth road. You come over from Balltown Road, and you're right there by Clifton Park, and you look down the road, and I mean, it's smooth sailing all the way down to Dean Street, and they do sail. I've caught them doing 43, 47. A lot of them go in the high 30s. It's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. For the life of me, I don't know why places like Old Niskayuna and the Country Club, where you have that higher density, I don't know why the speed limit is 30 miles an hour there, because people do 30 miles an hour. They take their extra 5. They're doing 35 miles an hour through a heavy dense neighborhood, and they use Old Niskayuna because of Balltown Road. Balltown Road is it's always backed up. You can't go from the high school down to Union without hitting the 3 lights there. It's just a mess. So, well, I think instead of doing these, I think the town should, and I'm talking to the wrong board here, I think the town should think about, and they have thought about a Balltown Road in the plan. They say Balltown Road is a mess. That's it, nothing we can do. It's a state road. I think the town should make a good effort to talk to the state and have that road fixed, because it's a main artery through town. And a lot of people like myself, there's a Lowe's down there at Mohawk Commons. I don't go to that Lowe's. I go over to Glenville. It's much easier, less hassle, much faster. And I imagine there's a lot of people that go out of town now to shop, so rather than take Balltown Road down to Mohawk Commons. So, well, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you. Anybody else? Privilege of the floor?
Hi, Michelle Lansing, 1468 Via Del Mar. I guess I just want to stress again, in continuation of the earlier discussion, that I'm unclear of what the town's end game is. Is the town's goal to try and bring in new people? Or is our primary goal to take care of the people that are already here? Those of us who bought our homes here many years ago, decades ago, didn't come here because we wanted to live in the middle of business. We very much chose a community that was not alongside of a highway because we wanted a community feel. And a lot of what I'm hearing being proposed in the town would make it easier for more cars, more traffic, more commercialism. And that's the opposite of why I moved to Niskayuna. I'm not afraid of change. I like smart change. And I want to know that there is a vision that Niskayuna has that we can all work together as a community. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Last call. No? That's it? Okay, we'll close privilege of the floor. Move on. In the agenda, we have no unfinished business tonight, but we do have 3 resolutions under new business. First resolution being Resolution 2019-02, a resolution for site plan approval of a monument sign for 2317 Balltown Road. Mr. Twitty?
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on an application for site plan review. Whereas Richard Olson of Olson Signs and Graphics has made an application to the planning board for site plan review for a monument sign on the property located at 2317 Balltown Road, as shown on a 2-page site plan entitled Niskayuna Professional Office Building dated January 16, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is RP, residential and professional, and whereas section 220-13, schedule I-H3 states that all signs shall be approved by the planning board for size, construction, and lighting. And whereas section 220-13, schedule IH1 states that one freestanding sign, which shall be a ground sign whose entire bottom shall be in contact with or in close proximity within 2 feet to the ground, such a sign shall not exceed 15 square feet in area and 8 feet in height above the average grade at its location. And whereas the monument sign is proposed as a square footage of 38.3 square feet, and therefore a 23.3 square foot waiver from the planning board is required for the sign. And whereas section 220-13, schedule IH3 states that in general, the following standards shall apply. Sign surfaces shall be of wood or masonry construction with painted or raised messages. The number of separate colors on a sign shall be limited to 2 plus white, and sign lighting shall be limited to direct external lighting. And whereas, as proposed, the monument sign is not constructed with wood or masonry construction and is internally lit, therefore a waiver for construction and lighting is also required. And whereas the planning board referred this application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, the fire district chief, and the chief of police, and there were no objections to the proposal. And whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission has determined that the proposed waiver for 23.3 square feet of signage, construction materials, and lighting would have a minimum negative effect on the aesthetics and is compatible with the existing neighborhood character. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the monument sign on the property located at 2317 Balltown Road, as shown on a 2-page site plan entitled Niskayuna Professional Office Building, dated January 16, 2019, in conjunction with said waivers, meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves this site plan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Twitty. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to interject to say I'm electing to recuse myself from Resolution 29-2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McPartlin. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
Motion.
So move.
A motion by Mr. Khan to approve the resolution and seconded by Mr. Laflamme.
Yes.
And we have the applicant, maybe come on up for a sec. Any discussion at all or questions for the applicant?
Well, clearly the letters are clearly bigger than they were
Much
last-
better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's busy.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
So we had 2 holdouts there, but sounds like a business name.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think it was a nice job of working with the board, going off and
Myself as well.
taking our suggestions, and I think it's a better product. Looks a lot cleaner and easier to see, and it's in keeping with the other approvals that we grant in the area, so I feel very comfortable about the granting the waivers that were requested on the resolution.
Terrific.
All right. Anybody else have any comments for the applicant?
It is an improvement over the previous submission. I'm not sure I see the need. I see it as advertising, not as a means for people to recognize the site, because I think just the street number and the name of the street would do that. And I guess this is my way of saying I'm increasingly less persuaded to go for advertising on these signs. This is, however, in keeping with ones in the same neighborhood. I do recognize that. But I think given our change in how we find places, most of us are relying on a GPS and all. The need for these is coming down to advertising, not people finding the actual location.
I think you probably use signs way more than you think you do.
Says the sign guy.
I'm an old person. The young people don't.
I clearly notice when there isn't a sign, even with GPS and an address.
Well, I didn't know Edward Jones was in there, so, you know,
Advertising.
so, you know, so to me, I think it's important for the business people that are there to be recognized and to be successful. We talked about a lot of empty storefronts and things, and I think this helps that personally, so.
It's the right middle ground.
Yep.
I think maybe one of the things the town should look at is just how far we want to go in indulging these in the future. Because the younger people, trust me, they really aren't reading the signs. Unfortunately, they might be reading their cell phone while they're
exactly.
driving.
There you go.
They're not really reading signs much.
Unfortunately, I have statistics that would differ with that, but that's another time.
Any other comments for the applicant? Okay, Mr. Tweedy, please call the roll.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
With reservations, aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. DiRapino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye. Aye, the resolution is adopted, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, second resolution, Resolution 2019-03, resolution for site plan approval of batteries plus bulbs at 402 Balltown Road.
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on an application for a site plan review. Whereas Jeffrey Taylor of Taylor Associates has made an application to the planning board for a new tenant within Mohawk Commons, 402 Balltown Road, is shown on in a site plan application entitled Mohawk Commons, Suite 6D, 412C Balltown Road, Niskuna, New York, 12304, dated January 21, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CS, Shopping Center Commercial, and whereas the planning board referred this application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, the fire district chief, and the chief of police, and there were no objections to the proposal. And whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal, and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the planning board and zoning commission finds that the site plan referenced above meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals for Mohawk Commons, and therefore hereby approves the site plan and tenant space.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Oster for approval.
Second.
Second by Mr. Laflamme. And again, we can have some discussion. I would like to say that, we're talking earlier, the public about empty space. So we have the old Barnes and Noble space, and here's an applicant willing to put in what's called batteries. Is it bulbs and batteries, right?
Batteries plus.
Batteries. And I did a little bit of search on it because it's the first time I heard of it.
Yes.
And I see there's going to be another one opening on Wolf Road also. Or
Wolf Road and Loudon Road in Latham. We've got 3 in this market.
Three. Okay, so
Should
the
have
2
one
on the,
by the end of July.
right. And it started out west and they started franchising like in the 90s and they've been moving east, it sounds like.
Started out in Wisconsin in 1988 and been franchising out from then. We're in 47 states in Puerto Rico.
Right.
What kind of store is it?
It's a retail location. We sell batteries for retail and commercial applications, lighting for your home, your auto, your business. We fix broken cell phones. I think it's 1,700 or so square feet. And typically have about 5 employees in there. And we take care of our customers the best we can with their lighting needs. We relamp offices, stadiums through our commercial team. Just if you need a light bulb for your refrigerator and you can't find it, there's nobody to help you at Lowe's. You come in to us and we're ready to take care of you.
And it's just in the spot between those 2 pillars?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just to the left of the Blaze Pizza that just moved in.
And the empty sign there, that used to be the Barnes and Noble sign? Or
I'm not sure what sign was in.
Oh, it's like a
Yeah,
little,
up
as I
there.
see like a little, in one of the diagrams, I see like an empty square.
Yeah, that's the
Design.
and you see on the one page, yeah.
Yeah.
Filled up beyond that.
It's a recess in the ethos.
Oh, it's not, no, but that wasn't something where there used to be something at that point? Okay.
No.
All right. All right.
I mean, Barnes and Noble had a big site and a big sign in that facing. I'm not sure
Okay.
where it was, but
All right.
that property has been divided now into three distinct
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah, something different, and hopefully it's accepted by the community. And I thought it was interesting too, like the repairing broken screens on cell phone, replacing
Yes.
batteries on cell phones and batteries, unique batteries for medical devices, all the way up through boats, cars, whatever.
Yeah, we replaced batteries in automated electronic defibrillators. I used to run them down in South Carolina, and we got the contract for the hospital and 400 AEDs for the whole county. Replaced all of those, car batteries, boat batteries, truck batteries, ATVs, snowmobiles. There's 40,000 batteries that we stock at our warehouse, over 20,000 different light bulbs, and another 40,000 available for special order.
Okay, so let me ask, you don't actually, let's talk about cars for a minute.
Yes,
You don't install batteries in cars. You just sell the battery.
we do install them where the municipality allows that. We do it. If the municipality doesn't allow it, then we don't do it. We
So
sell
that's
it to
not
the
the plan
customer. and they do
for,
it.
that's not part of the application for this location, right?
That's our intention at this location, yes, sir. If
Yeah,
it's
that-
not allowed by the municipality, then we just sell it, the customer takes it, we carry it out to their car and put it in their trunk for them. And
Yeah, that
wish
was
them the
one of the
best.
things, the previous presentation, you weren't here, we were talking
Yes.
about the business, we didn't get to the level of detail about the automotive batteries, about,
Yes.
replacing them in the parking lot and,
Where it's allowed, that's what we do. We've got locations in White Plains, New York, where you have to be in a garage to do it. And so our White Plains location doesn't do it. In South Miami, you have to be in a garage to do it. We don't do it there. Customer comes in, we go out and pop their hood, see what kind of battery it is, make sure it's the right size, sell it to them, put it in their trunk for them, and wish them the best. And when they're done changing it in their home, they bring their core back to us, so we ensure it's recycled.
Was that explicit in our application? I didn't see that.
No,
Do we have anything that prohibits it?
that's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure that,
Yeah,
My
I'm trying to think,
recollection
like
is
auto-
that
Regulate
Montgomery
something like
Ward's
that.
used to do things like that.
I'm trying to think what AutoZone and all those places,
AutoZone,
they all change
Pep
the
Boys,
battery out, they
all of
come
them
out and do it
typically.
for you also, yeah. Or check the battery to make sure it's
Correct.
bad, put the voltmeter on it and see if it's charging or not.
Yes.
I remember
Yeah.
Montgomery Ward did similar things.
Well, I guess the basic question for our account is it allowed or is it not allowed or allowed?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
but that wouldn't actually be like, I mean, they're not requesting a waiver for it. I think that's
Yeah.
actually probably state code. So, or well, maybe not state code if White Plains does it, but it'd be something we'd look into that we're not asking to preclude. They either can do it or they can't do
Yep.
it.
We're not asking for an exclusion or a waiver.
Yeah.
We'll follow whatever the town policy is. If it's your policy that we don't do it, we won't do it.
We allow AAA to come in and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
think-
we have explicit
So it's a
code on
clear
it.
question that I think we should be able to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
the town should be able to answer.
Yeah, correct. So
Is it allowed or not?
correct. But it doesn't basically affect this actual application.
It doesn't affect,
It
it doesn't affect this resolution.
Correct.
So is that something, when they come in for the building permit, we could handle it then with the building inspector to make that determination, make it clear to the applicant at that point in time, so we don't need to modify the resolution?
Yeah, I don't.
Is
think
that
we can
okay?
modify the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution really doesn't deal with this at all. So I mean,
Okay.
it's either allowed or not.
All right, because I think one of the concerns is, once you say you're replacing things, then you tend to have a garbage can outside and things tend to grow before you know it, and I know that the batteries with the lead, they got to be handled appropriately and
Yes.
stored in the correct spot, so I wouldn't expect that to happen. It's not
No.
like an AutoZone where people are buying stuff and all of a sudden they're out there fixing their car, right? And
There's no oil changes.
Yeah.
A battery change typically takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We got 770 locations, like I said, in 47 states, and we got 6 locations in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So we're well versed with what we need to do. We've never had any EPA violations. All our recycling is handled by a national vendor that's certified for the EPA to handle all our recycling. So it's something we're
Do you
well
replace
versed.
bulbs in cars,
We do. If the customer doesn't feel comfortable doing it, we'll do it for them.
including headlamp bulbs?
If they don't feel comfortable doing it, we'll do that for them. Yes, sir.
So I think I don't see it as being part of the resolution, but I'd like to put on our list that we need to look this part over carefully. What's allowed to happen in the parking lot, what's not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can definitely look into it. Retail is different than car service in our zoning, so this is being proposed as a retail.
Montgomery
Sure.
Woods did have an automotive spot. But they did come out to the parking lot to do the repairs.
Yeah.
Replacements
We
rather.
can, we'll look at it.
All right, you understand the concern. We just went, didn't want to get into
No, I understand.
having all sorts of repairs in the parking lot when you got, a pizza place next door and
Right.
other customers, trying to park and coming in and out and all that, right?
Yes.
Cleanliness, of course. Sounds like you're responsible to the business to, making sure things are recycled, take care. I know light bulbs can be hazardous along with the batteries, right? So there's, EPA and state
Use Veolia
regulations
for
and how
that.
you handle all that stuff that you need to follow. So it's just a matter of whether it's intrusive to the parking lot, right? So Laura, so if if you could take a look at that and when they come in for the building permit, to make sure that it's clear for the applicant, is that a way we can handle that? And everybody's okay with that? Okay.
And obviously I know the environmental stuff, Laura, you do look at that at building permit, right? For disposal waste. They do have to provide something.
No, I mean, if they need a specific area in the building or something like that, we would look at it under building permit. But like a hazardous waste disposal plan for batteries, I think that's something that's regulated at state level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think all you have to do is ensure that they know that and they have,
Yeah.
You're probably gonna have one of those recycling bins too for people to drop off batteries when they come into the store too?
It's a
Yeah, it's just a
little foam board display.
Yeah,
You
just
can,
like,
drop a
Home
couple
Depot
double A's
has
or
with
triple
great
A's in there and take care of them. And we handle all sorts of recycling. Some things we do for free, some things we charge for because there's a cost that we incur to process it. But we advertise it, we market it, and we want to be, a good member of the community, make sure things are being taken care of appropriately and not junked out in their garbage.
and just one thing for me specific to the resolution, they don't require any sign waivers, right? I didn't see that.
No, they don't. No, I checked on that one.
Any other questions for the applicant or concerns? And thanks, Laura and Jeffrey, for taking care of that, when the applicant comes in for the building permit. I have no other comments. Anything else? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin?
Aye.
Mr. DiRapino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye, resolution adopted, and
Thank you.
welcome to the community, and hopefully successful there.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Final resolution for tonight, Resolution 2019-04, resolution for site plan approval of a State Farm Insurance Agency at 3610 State Street.
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on an application for a site plan review. Whereas Victor Godin of State Farm Insurance has made an application to the planning board for a new tenant at 3610 State Street, Unit 4, as shown in a site plan entitled Insurance Agency Floor Plan, Victor Godin, 3610 State Street, Niskuna, New York, 12309, dated January 21, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CH, Commercial Highway Zoning District, and whereas the planning board referred this application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, fire district chief, and the chief of police, and there were no objections to this proposal. And whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal, and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds that the site plan referenced above meets the requirements of the zoning code and hereby approves this site plan in tenant space.
Okay, thank you. Again, another motion for this resolution? Moved by Mr. Khan for adoption, and I'll second this one. How's that? Okay, in discussion. Again, I just like to add, we just talked about concerns with space. Here's a second resolution tonight for a vacant storefront at 3610. Been vacant, looks like, since 2016, right? It used to be a spa, and looking to put the
And compared to the other applications we've gotten for this spot, this one is actually pretty good.
yeah.
It's a great use for it.
Yeah, it's a great use. It looks like the site, there's no issues with the site and parking. And
He didn't give you any of the signs, but it's gonna be like this, just the State Farm logo and his name underneath.
and that goes on the board that's existing?
Yes,
Was there any?
there's existing spot on the sign by the street and then on top of the entrance
Okay,
of the store.
yep. So there's the spot already for that size and just basically filling out the signage that's pre-existing. Okay. So I didn't see any concerns. It seems like a good project. And then
Yeah.
This is the last spot in there that's vacant, right? That needs to be leased, or is there another one?
I think that the next door, this thing,
Still?
the smoke shop isn't there anymore.
Okay.
I don't think. Is it?
The what?
Is the smoke shop still open?
I think so.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, no.
Oh, no, that's where we're going in.
Yeah, there was like a secondhand store dealership that's gone, but I think that might actually be this space.
Okay, it's at Spa, but,
Yeah, but I know we've reviewed this space a couple of times. We've looked at the parking spaces and we have discussed multiple times about licensing. We discussed that with the applicant. He provided his licenses just to be consistent with our reviews before. You do have the spot for the signage and there's kind of minimal changes to the inside of the building. So
yep.
staff did recommend approval of this.
No, thank you. And are you the applicant or representing the applicant?
His wife.
Okay.
He's,
Representing the
training,
applicant.
he's training with State Farm at Bloomington, Illinois, minus 40 degrees right now.
Okay, great. No,
So-
thank you.
Be that tomorrow.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin?
Aye.
Mr. DiArpino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye, resolution's approved. And again, good luck with the insurance agency at 3610 State Street.
Thank you very much. He's going to be super excited. We're really excited to start a new
Great.
business up here.
No, thank you and welcome. Okay, so that closes the new business portion of the agenda. We'll move on to discussion items. I know some people are interested in 500, but just please try to hang in there. When we get to that because we also have some applicants that we need to talk to. So first we have 397, 399 Anthony Street Site Plan Review and Special Use Permit. And that's Mr. McPartland is the project lead and Mr. Easton, MJ Engineering representing the applicant. Just wanted to kick it off. Is that what you'd like or?
Jamie, I think you could turn it a little because the board, just so that people in the audience can.
Yeah,
see
we've
it,
got,
you could turn
yeah,
it-
we've got packets of everything, so. we're
Yeah, that,
familiar.
yes, yes.
Yes,
Since we have an
thank you.
audience tonight.
Yeah, we do have an audience tonight.
So just to let the board know kind of where we stand, we've gone through 2 rounds of TDE review now. We've had some correspondence with Jamie and his staff at MJ Engineering regarding those comments. And 2 of the major issues of note were a elaborating on a spill response plan and spill response kit training and the like. And this encroachment that we're seeing on the land conservation zone by the stormwater retention basin.
Yep.
So, Jamie, if you want to give any broad project updates, feel free. And then I think
Yep.
those are the 2 things that I'd like to talk about briefly.
Certainly. Again, Board, Jamie Easton from MJ Engineering. Certainly on December 18th, we submitted a revised plan stormwater report based upon comments. Upon that resubmission on January 18th, Bartlett Judas issued a letter with 4 comments on it. Certainly the first 2 comments on their letter really has to do with apparently, one didn't correspond with the other, update a legend. Nothing really involved. In regards to spill response, I did reach out to Canal Corporation 4 times, spoke to one person once. They said they would get back to me. They've never gotten back to me. But really the liability of any potential soil contamination on this site is actually at the owners, the person that's buying the land. So if he actually buys something that's polluted, he's inheriting that risk. We have no known items in the area that were potentially polluted at all at this location. We have no history of that. There's no history from DEC or anybody else at this site. So I'm under the assumption that there is nothing there. There's no requirements for us to take a look at that. Again, when a new person buys a piece of land, they're inheriting whatever associated risks that underlie at that particular site. Certainly, the only last question that Bartlett Judas had was about discharging of stormwater over instead of discharging directly to the river. They suggested discharging it through or on the vegetation before it gets to the river. Due to that steep slope, I would probably actually disagree with Bartlett Judas on that requirement. Due to the fact that we've all seen a pump run, we've all seen basically what it looks like a fire hose coming out, and you can imagine that really steep slope right there with that vegetation. It could erode that situation. So I would really disagree with what Bartlett Judas actually wrote there. I'll highlight that back in my letter, my comment response letter back to the town. In regards to Army Corps of Engineers,
I know the town wanted to be kept in the loop on that. We've reached out to Army Corps of Engineers. They are actually open. They did not shut down during the federal shutdown, just in case anybody was wondering about that. I did reach out to them numerous times. Our wetland consultant, OSPA, reached out to them. On November 20th, we made a revised application to them. Legally, by law, they have 45 days to respond to our application. It's been over 65 days since our application has gone in about the isolated wetlands on the project site. Because of their no response, they're actually basically defaulting to say there is no wetlands actually on the site. I have called Brad today. I called him twice to see if he wanted to talk to me about this. He did not return my phone calls. I'm hopefully over the next week, I can at least speak to him and seeing that legally, even though there's no requirement for us to follow an Army Corps permit on this project, but as of now, by their defaulting not to submit any comment response letter on it, I still want to follow up with him and just at least talk to the gentleman. But that's where the Army Corps permit actually is that there is no one on this project site now. The last two issues, certainly a spill response plan. We did take that. We did submit one informally to the town. We will submit that again formally, but just if you happen to see it, that if Laura passed that out with your package, we'll certainly, hopefully that you can now look at that. It's a little bit more in depth than the previous one and more comprehensive.
I don't know if the engineering department's looked at it or not, yes, but obviously it's much more extensive and detailed than the original submittal. The only thing I would suggest there is put some kind of an ID or reference or date on it and a rev number so we can reference it. That would be helpful.
Perfect. We'll certainly have. And then the last issue is certainly the proposed stormwater management area within the LC zone. We did receive the planning department's letter, their wishes, their intent to pull it out of the LC. That was our original intent and design, but obviously we're trying to maximize both things. Certainly, per our letter, there's 951 square feet within the LC zone. While we believe that, the planning board does have the right to stipulate, and I did mention that last time, if you really want it moved out, you certainly can, but there are allowed uses within the LC zone. Certainly single-family homes, laboratory resource libraries are allowed, and certainly park and rec facilities. Certainly you have existing park facilities in the town located within LC land. Certainly you can imagine that any one of those park facilities, baseball fields, or anything else, those parking lots are going to need to be rehabbed at some point. At that point, you certainly will need to design to the new current stormwater management facilities. And you could imagine a stormwater management facility located within an LC zone for your existing parks that you have. I just wanted to point that out to the town by having something that is not allowed in the zone is sometimes a gray area that the planning board should consider on all projects. But that's where we currently are on this project. It is 900 and, like I said, 915
or whatever, yeah.
951 square feet. Yeah. Most of it's outside of it. And the grading limit lines haven't changed. It's just, instead of having that slope coming down and then a 6 or 7 foot of grass area before the LC line is, I just kind of started my detention basin in that area, the infiltration area, in that location where really the existing infiltration area is right now. So that's kind of my thought process around it. But again, that's up to the board if they really want it, that 951 square feet out of, I don't know what the area is, but it's probably 95% outside of the basin's at 95% outside of the LC zone.
Right. And I understand your comment, but it's something we talked about right up front, right? It's something that from the get-go that we want to just keep that isolated from the LC. One thing that I mentioned to the board, to Laura before, is that, what hardship, obviously it's 1,000 square feet of available space, but is there any hardship that it's causing the business for that, to keep it out of the LC?
Well, certainly, you're taking more space away from, the gravel storage area that's on the site. Certainly there's nothing in code that prevents a stormwater management area within an LC zone. But we did hear you, and just because of grading aspects, that's where I kind of fell, and it made sense to me from a hydraulic standpoint, a grading standpoint, and things like that. That's where it physically wanted to fit. Because of that, it's 951 square feet. At the time, after I did the grading and did the submission last time, it didn't seem, absolutely absorbent to me based upon the design that I had, that it was really encroaching onto the LC when most of it was outside of it. That's all.
But I'm just reminding the board and going over the comments that were prepared by Jeff and myself. This rezone, the original rezone from LC to LCIG was not an entirely uncontroversial process. And I think where the board fell and the town board fell with compromise was that we really wanted to maintain that LC buffer. So if you're going to have IG zone on Anthony Street and have it make sense because of the shooting range and the wastewater treatment plant, okay, but let's make sure that the corridor to the Mohawk River is protected. And I think that has been made very clear during the rezone process and during the site plan review process. And I think that when we've looked at properties before, we've tried to say, okay, well, the detention basin isn't really an accessory structure, but it's essentially functioning to allow the IG zone use. And we would want to set a precedence that the uses that are associated with the IG zone stay in the IG zone.
And I think that's what I'm hearing from the board also. So we'd like you to do what you can do to get it all into the IG zone.
That's certainly fine. There's nothing wrong, but like I said, I can slide it that 5-6 feet or whatever it happened to be outside that area. It's just, there's many ways to do it. Certainly, I could. There's other ways. I'm not going to go into technical ways, but there's other ways.
You work on that. I think if you, you heard us, you heard the town planner. If you can do that, I think we can, keep this project moving along.
Yeah, certainly I wasn't here for the rezoning process. Certainly it was made known to me during the site plan review process from this board and from Laura about the intent and design. And then as I got to doing the hard numbers, certainly I was logically going, makes sense right here. And this is where the grading limit lines are. And this is where it magically makes sense versus that line going through there.
Yeah, no, your line of thought does make sense. But now with the additional information of the why.
That's fine.
We appreciate the modification.
Laura, the next step for this board on this is
Final.
going to be a resolution for final site plan review.
Mhm.
And there's no more public hearings associated with that.
No, it had essentially 3 public hearings. 2 at the the planning board called for site plan and special use permit, and then there was a special use permit at the town board.
Attended well? Because I know ours weren't.
Um,
Was the town board attended well?
Daryl came, I think. Was there anybody else that spoke when you spoke? It was not very well attended.
Awesome. Public's doing their job. Great.
Was there somebody else there?
I believe there was 1 or 2 people at the town board meeting, but there was a large topic and the people I think were tired after the first topic was over at the town board issue before we were actually heard. So I think some people could have left earlier just because of that predicament.
But I think because actually we had a split vote sending this special use permit to the town board, and they added conditions. Like if you guys remember, they added some of the conditions to protect the.
I just wanted to mainly know what our next step of the process is. And
yes.
Okay.
Resolve comments and hopefully bring it to closure, right?
Yes, hopefully next week we can, I will get it in as soon as possible. Probably be towards the end of the week that we'll get our plans back in. If Laura feels that we're ready for the resolution for final site plan, or you'll see me in a month's time.
You got to use your engineering skill and get it all right.
Yeah.
I think the comments are minor that are left. And I think moving a piece of puzzle on a piece of paper is not the hardest thing to do. So thank you.
All right. Just for you, did you have anything else, Mr. McPartlin, at all for that?
No, just thank you to Jamie for your time tonight and throughout this process.
Thank you, board.
I have one issue. I think the only thing that would sway me from getting that out of the land conservation would be if there's an environmental impact that would argue for keeping it into the land conservation use. I don't think there is, but that's not my area. I'm not an engineer.
No, there's no benefit for
Okay.
that case. I couldn't, in good faith, try to make that argument by any stretch of the
And that's what it
imagination.
would take to sway me. Thank you
Okay.
much.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Mr. Easton.
Patrick, if we, if the submittal that they submit has everything contained within the IG zone, are we comfortable for the next time bringing it with a tentative resolution?
I am, yeah, I think so.
Yep,
That would be my recommendation is, that's really the only outstanding issues that I
So-
think that we've been discussing.
yep, no, I agree. So Mr. Easton, what we're saying is if you can get the submittal in for our next meeting, address the relocation, out of the LC, make sure we got any of the minor comments closed with Barton LaJudas, we'll try to get this to closure.
Yes, that's our intent, is to get everything in by Friday, and we thank even the board for looking at the formal application for the revised spill response, so we can at least address some of those comments
Yeah.
beforehand and get them back in.
Okay.
Thank you.
The engineering department has looked at the revised spill plan. We don't have their formal comments, but I do think that they thought it was much more adequate. Yeah.
Yeah, once we get their comments, we'll make everything all at once. So
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, let's see, now, discussion items, let's see. 2340 Knott Street East, 26-unit apartment building, site plan review, and that's Mr. Diarpino. Mr. Paleshi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you again. Yeah, we all have copies ourselves here also.
All right, am I starting or?
Sure, you might as well give an update. How's that work?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Luigi Paleshi here with ABD Engineers, here tonight for, what is it? Can't even remember, it's been so long.
2340 Knott Street.
2340 Knott Street. We were here about a year ago, and there were a couple items that we were working through. One of them being the town's moratorium on the sewer. If you recall, the project once had a septic system, which we agreed to remove, and we waited a little bit longer, and fortunately enough, the town resolved the moratorium and lifted that. So the plan is to get rid of the septic system and tie into the town's municipal sewer system, which is right on Greens Farms Road. So that was one of the items. I know a lot of the neighbors were concerned about putting an on-site septic system, and I think we're beyond that at this point. Another item was the fact that adding additional street trees along Knott Street. I do have to note that this plan that I have up here is based on the old plan, but what was submitted, you'll see in black and white, there's two more trees than what I show on my color up there. Again, that was just a CAD error that didn't get updated for tonight's meeting, and I apologize for that. But on the latest and greatest plan, we do have 5 street trees along Knott Street with a mix of sugar maples and red maples. That was an item, again, that was discussed last time we were here. Another item to update the board was on the south side, which is towards the bottom of the page. We're proposing a landscaping berm there. We had discussions with Laura and I believe some of the board members here on positioning the trees on top of that berm. At one point, we had the berm sort of higher than what this planning board was expecting, so we lowered the height of that berm, and we settled around 4 to 6 feet of height in that berm. And again, we've added and positioned the trees at the top of that berm to soften, the berm and the slope down into the site. Last but not least, I think part of maybe why it took us so long to get back before you. We had several discussions with, again, Laura and Mr. Darpino on the architectural rendering of the building, another concern that the neighbors had, as well as this board. And I'll just pull that up here. As we may recall, we went through several iterations of, the building facade. We had flat roofs, we had different type dormer roofs, and now we're at a point where we believe we're heading in a direction that was directed by Mr. Darpino, where we have Mansford roofs and other elements that keep the building more symmetrical. We've added the colors and you're looking at a cultured veneer stone on the first floor, as well as vinyl siding, and you got some gabled ends with cedar shakes, just to mix up different colors of vinyl siding and materials facing Knott Street. A couple other items in regards to the look, if you recall, on the what would it be, the east side facing Greens Farms Road. We had a blank wall there before, and now we've wrapped the stone around, and we've also added some windows. So again, softening the look of the building. And I'm not an architect, and I was part of some of the discussions that the architect was Dan Sanders and Mr. Darpino and Mr. Fusco. We were all at the table, as well as Laura, discussing many of these, which I think we've incorporated, but I think I rather turn it over to Mr. Darpino to kind of get into the details to see if it's what you're looking for or what changes you might have. And we can certainly meet again, or I can relay any of the comments that you might have back to Mr. Sanders.
Just one quick thing for, are you still meeting your height requirements in the new?
Yes. Yeah. So as far as I probably should have stated this right up front. I know the agenda tonight lists a 26 unit. I believe we're at 25. Is that correct?
We are, okay.
Yeah. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 25 units. We'd love to go 26, but I think, we've already tried that, and, we've settled at 25 units here. But as far as the building layout, again, when we went through those discussions, whether it was a 26 unit apartment building or 25 units, is still the same square footprint. Some of the units just get a little bigger, especially on that third floor. So it is a 3-story. The height is still,
I remember. Yeah.
is still 35 feet high. We're not asking for any variances, again, because we went down that route many times. And, here we are hoping for the last round of comments, if there are any at this point. We feel that we've addressed them, and, we would really like to get to groundbreaking, this spring. So.
Okay.
So I think we'll start with the elevations because we have them here. These were generated off of some sketches that we did when we met with the architect. It got a little bit more cohesiveness to using roof lines that were aligned, using a single style of dormer, not 3 types of dormers, mixing sheds with gables and roof lines. It just didn't align. The front, which is the top elevation, and the back, I think are basically what we had talked about. The side elevations I'm still concerned about for a couple of reasons. One is they're not drawn correctly because they don't show
The basement.
the
Garage, right.
And that is going to be a big issue with the adjacent properties that look over to these areas. So not seeing all the floor plans, all 3 floors, and actually including the basement, the entry level, that has to be shown where those retaining walls are coming in. And then it would be prudent too to double check those floor plans to make sure there are actually windows. I'd be shocked if there weren't more because they are apartments. So they'd be pretty big. And there aren't stairwells on the ends. So.
Okay.
But generally, I think they've divided it up really well. There's a defined base, a middle, the roof lines are consistent as they go across. And, we did lose our nice little decorative railings on the ends and in the center bay, but I can talk to Dan about that. Again, I don't know if that's a building department issue. If ornamentation goes above the 35 feet, maybe restricting that, that's a building department.
No, it does not included.
Okay. But I think overall you're getting there. So,
Okay.
but the side elevations, it has to be a cohesive elevation the next time we do the submission.
So I mean, I did go through the minutes and I know we've had a lot of discussions on the berms. The last discussion on the berms that I could find in the minutes were that the planning board was willing to consider a higher berm if the residents who lived in that area sort of wanted that as shielding to, rather than seeing a building.
Yep.
But I just know from like meeting later that reaching out to the residents to see how they felt that the berm was not something that the developer wanted to do. So I think planting on top of the berm helps, but I mean, I still think like without that input, my recommendation is that berm not be there. I don't think it's good for stormwater, and I think that unless the residents are coming in and saying build us a berm, I don't think most people want to see a berm in their backyard. It's not a normal thing to have in a site plan.
Is that the 4 to 6 foot that you're referring to?
Mhm.
But you're currently having it, right?
I'm sorry?
You said you dropped it a bit from.
We
when you
did.
last saw.
Yeah, this was on the plan all along, and there was some discussion about the height of it. We did lower it. As far as stormwater, it doesn't affect the drainage or stormwater. It's going to be grass. It's got mixed pines on top of the berm. Right now, it's wide open, and the entire land drains towards this neighbor. By creating a berm, it actually helps with the stormwater because some of it we can send into our own site and just, minimize the amount that's going towards the property line. And we also have a drainage swale that picks it up and brings it into our site. So it doesn't affect drainage. And I look at it like when we do a grading plan, we look at a site, and as you know, right, the lands are currently draining from west to east. So in order to get this building in here, we got to do a significant cut on the west side, and fill on the east side. So when we grade this thing out, we do the best we can with balancing all the site work, because, we want to try to limit the number of trucks taking the material off site, for traffic, for roadway stability and so forth. So by building this berm here actually reduces the amount of construction vehicles that will enter and exit the site during construction. We use landscaping berms almost on every project, planning boards are asking us, hey, can you put a landscaping berm on there? And sometimes I'm saying no, because I don't want to import soil. Here we have the soil on site, so why not utilize it and create the berm? We've added additional trees along the back, even though we're saving as many trees as we can along the property line. I think that was one of the discussions we also had, was add additional trees over in this area as well. And again, I apologize, but there are additional trees. That's in your packet here. It just didn't get reflected on the site plan, but there are trees right in this area here, mixed pines, again, because, we were getting a little close with the existing vegetation all along the property line. So I feel that the berm should be there. It has a couple of good points, as I mentioned, keeping or reducing the amount of construction traffic, trucks on and off. And, it provides that landscaping berm, especially for this resident,
Yeah, personally, I have a hard time envisioning what it's going to look like from the neighbor's property, what's there now versus what it will be with the berm, because we don't have like a any kind of an image, right, that demonstrates that? Do you have something on that?
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the contours, but I mean, lot 4 looks like the majority of their lot is, between 426 and 431, and the top of the berm is at 439. So I mean, you're talking about a 10-foot change in elevation, for that property owner.
Yeah, I mean, we want it to look good, and we'd like to obviously minimize the impact on the neighbors when the project's done, and it's kind of hard to envision,
And I just want to verify, did any one of the neighbors give any feedback or none of them gave feedback?
I mean, we had very well attended public hearings on this.
No, but on the specific thing we had asked them to go do, to go knocking on doors and
Oh,
asking.
I don't think the developer
I don't
allowed
think-
Luigi to do that.
We did not go door to door asking if
Okay.
they would want a berm. So what I handed Mr. Chairman is just pictures that I had found online to what I feel that what the berm would look like. It's just a slope coming up, and then at the top we put some trees. The trees that are shown there are some hardwoods. We would propose mixed pines, so they would keep the vegetation all year round, as opposed to these hardwoods that I'm passing around. But it'll be mowable grass that you would see. And again, we need to grade that side of the site anyway, so it's going to be a hill. Whether that hill is another 6-7 feet taller,
And the
it's not
existing
gonna change the
residents,
look.
their yards is not obviously part of the plan, so their yard stays the same. As soon as your property line, it'll start to climb up the berm, right?
Correct.
And as far as drainage, there'd be nothing coming back. One of the big
Nothing-
concerns we always hear is obviously
Right,
is
going
anytime we
onto
do
the property,
development,
no, because
people got water they didn't have before.
Exactly.
Even if you had nothing to do with it, usually we
Right.
hear that,
I
right?
know, but we are proposing a swale right along the property line. So we're actually coming from the property line, cutting a swale in, and then building our berm so that any water
Yeah. from
from the grass that goes in that direction will hit the swale and come into our site. And then we have our on-site drainage system that would collect that.
So it's almost like a matter, Laura, of like preference of the resident. Some people might say, hey, that's so, it kind of shields the apartments, and, they may like the berm, and other residents might say, hey, I got this hill, but it isn't their property, right? And
Right.
So it's, I don't know,
I feel like it's just more effective rather than having a berm there to just revegetate the entire area and let it be, a forest. I know it's not really a
It's not
forest right
vegetated now.
because-
The neighbor right there,
Yeah, has
adjoining
encroached
the
on the
property
property.
is actually taking advantage of Mr. Fusco's property.
Yeah. If you look at aerials, you can clearly see that the neighbor has encroached there with the lawn, but I think that, just revegetating that thickly is probably going to be a better buffer than a berm.
so you're recommending the berm and some.
Well, I've got berm and trees,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, keep in mind
Yeah, I
how
mean-
long we've been on this project.
Yeah,
We've
I know.
conceded a unit, it seems like we keep getting,
Wait, let's just back up. On the legal issue of conceding a unit, I think we have the stronger legal argument. So that's not really a concession.
Look, given where we're at with neighbors' inputs, everything else, the only objective thing left really is what is the impact of that berm to drainage? Or I'll say the combination of the berm and the swale to drainage.
Yeah, well,
And
Visual aspect.
yeah. So,
I mean, the visual aspect, like we've discussed enough times, and without hearing from the direct neighbors, the visual aspect is going to sit on a matter of opinion, right? It can fall.
It
either
is,
way.
yes.
But-
And I mean, we certainly do require berms to be built occasionally.
Right. And so the question really becomes, is that going to cause a drainage issue or mitigate the drainage issue?
it would mitigate, because right now that entire slope is draining towards this property. So you take half of that drainage area and we're redirecting it to our own system. And it's already incorporated in our latest stormwater design. We've discussed this with not discussed it, but the town designated engineer reviewed our drainage summary report, the SWIP and everything. And, we've always had that berm there. So, it's always been part of the plan and the SWIP plan as far as drainage goes.
Luigi, in terms of existing site conditions, do you know what the elevation of where that proposed berm is, what that elevation is now?
So on the high side where it's currently cleared by this homeowner up here, the existing elevation is 435, right in this area here. And it's kind of hard, so it slopes in this direction, right? So it goes from 435 to 431, okay? And what we're doing on the high side is we're building this up from 435 to 439 on this side of this slope. And because the existing grade's going down and we're creating this berm leveling it out, at the highest point, the existing grade is 432 to 439, right? So that's what, 7 feet. And then from that, it comes down so that next to the property line where I had mentioned it was existing 431, we're 432, we're a foot higher as we start to build that berm further back. So the highest point is roughly 30, 40 feet from the back property line before it gets to that highest point of the berm. So it's not like the berm is right on the property line where it comes, straight up where the guy is going to say, holy cow, look at this thing. It's a gradual one on slope. It's mobile, coming in from the site. So.
But what is the advantage to the planning board requesting the berm? It's not necessary for the site plan. It's just a matter of them trucking fill off. Is it just a matter of you guys trucking fill off of the site, right?
Right. Why would we want to add more construction traffic to the
Is there a
roads?
market for the excess fill?
No, because it's mostly clay and shale on site. So
Yeah.
I would disagree with that, but you're not talking about trucking a lot of materials. That's not a lot of materials for a site that big. So the other thing with the berm is that it does lose any potential to have its own private garden area for those residents, the 25 units. Also located where it is downtown, in the center overlay district, it's the only area that would have some sort of substantial rise that sets alone. We don't normally see that close to one of the main arteries.
The road elevation, at the property line, it looks like it's about 429. So the berm is at 438. It's still going to be 10 feet higher than the road.
I don't know if you can see it on the site plan already, but there's an existing berm that sits between the village, right? And that's already at 438. And I think we talked about this at the last meeting, and that's why we lowered this to about 438. We're actually 439. So we're in comparison to what's already on the site. I thought we went through this over and over, and we went back and forth. And I'll do what the board wants to do. It's easy for me to pull it off the site plan. It's just something that we usually incorporate when we look at a grading plan. Like, my client expects me to, look at all these things. How do we save costs? Value engineering, I guess. I'm not looking to say, no, we need it.
Yeah, I understand where you're at. And I'm kind of on the fence, and I want to,
Where's that existing berm that's 438? It's not showing up in this one. Do you guys see it?
Yeah,
If you look at sheet 2 on the grading plan,
Right at the southwest corner of the property.
Okay.
Need my magnifying glass.
Right next to the word asphalt and lands of Camillo Estates.
Are you concerned at all with channeling water towards the entrance of the garage?
no, we have drainage there.
Structures.
Just
Catch basin structures, yes.
right in front of the garage entrance?
Yes.
Well,
Designed so it will not be flooding the roadway.
Correct.
So, just from the planning department's perspective, we just don't understand the need for the berm and think that potentially there's not a real good reason to have it there. And we've talked about the buffering before. I think adding the trees is helping, but I still think that if you're saving the existing vegetation, my recommendation would be that we mark the existing vegetation that's being saved, and just make sure that that buffering is very adequate. At the public hearing, we heard a lot of concern that this building is very high, and the buildings and the residences on Van Antwerp Road are lower than it, so it's going to look especially high. So I think to protect, the surrounding character of the community, we really want to make sure that those buffers are strong. So my recommendations to the planning board are that the buffers are even increased beyond what they have been. I think that adding more trees is good, but there still needs to be more landscaping, maybe some smaller trees in between the bigger trees. And marking what existing vegetation is going to be saved. I think that's helpful to be added to the plans. And then the last thing, and I know we have discussed this before, Luigi, but it's just confirming the location of the 8-track and putting those on the plans so that we know
Confirming the location of what?
of the, like the air conditioning units.
Oh, okay.
That's my recommendations to the planning board.
So Laura, for this berm, I can catch what you're saying there.
I mean, I just don't
Yeah.
think that it's necessary to be that
Is there,
tall.
is there a compromise? Like, I hear your position and I know what we'd like. Is there, can we reduce it a bit to still, help the appearance, but,
Yeah, we can shave 2 feet off of it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I'm
can-
trying
yeah,
to-
We can reduce the height.
I want to
I
get
don't know
there
what
with you too,
the-
you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Want to
I
keep
agree.
going on. I know you
I
want to keep,
understand.
so, we can compromise, you give a little bit, take a little bit, maybe there's still a little bit of berm. I don't know. I mean, I'm only one vote, so.
But the advantage of the berm would be if you're putting the trees on top of it, they'd have a head start in getting the height that we would want eventually. Because you're not going to get full-grown trees on there. Not at the start.
Right.
So I think Mr. Khan's comment, and I agree with him, it's a matter of personal preference, for a resident there. But we want to look at.
Wait, that's why there's 7 of you. I'm just giving
Yeah.
you my
No, I
best.
understand.
Although I think this is not very, I think some people may not find this very attractive in there. It's a matter of personal taste, but
Are you gonna mow around the trees? I almost feel like you just want to revegetate that area once it's done. Just make it a natural area that isn't mowed like this. I just not sure how that would work.
I'm curious, are pets going to be allowed in these apartments?
That I don't know.
Because if they are, I would suggest you have a designated area for walking dogs.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of green space on the site to walk areas. We got a flat area on the back side of the building there too, so that anyone can walk around the building.
So I just guess, Mr. Diop, I'm going to put you on the spot here as the project lead. What's your recommendation on the berm?
I think lowering it definitely, even if it's only a couple feet, and widening it up to maybe say towards the north end, towards the street a little bit more, spreading out those lines may helpful. I mean, if it's a cut and fill issue and hauling away materials, that's not a big expense. I mean,
I didn't say it was about expense.
No,
It's
but-
about how many trucks that is coming in and out. Why wouldn't you want to keep those trucks off if you can?
Yeah, I think, I think that would be a temporary perturbation, and I guess in the long run, we'd want to get it right the best we can.
Right, I hear you.
But that's also something neighbors complain about.
Yeah.
Trucks going by with the dirt.
But,
it's going to be a construction site, and there's going to be trucks coming in daily. That's just the nature of what it is.
Please remind me, the berm is an artifact of the no longer needing the septic system, right? You
Correct.
have the septic system located there.
Right.
So I mean, one way we could look at this is that since there's no septic system, there should be no berm, and we go back to what was originally there in the first place,
Grass.
right? Just
But that's what we're proposing. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a grass berm with trees on top.
Yeah, grass berm, right? As opposed
Yeah.
As opposed to grass at 432.
So,
It is in Luigi's event. It's a tricky site.
Yeah, no, I
mean,
understand.
Yeah, it's
he's
right.
working on a hill, so
We've
Thank you.
guys, we've cut it this way. We've cut it this one like 5 different ways, right? Over a very
yeah,
long time.
and that's why I'm saying if you could shave just a bit off of it to compromise, so it isn't as apparent, I guess. And, and work with David, I think.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think that's one option. The other option is, rework the site, get rid of the dirt and make it level, as level as possible.
I think for whatever it's worth, Luigi, and you've done a lot and the owner's done a lot. And so we do acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, a reasoning that is because of extra construction trucks during the construction phase or anything else associated with cut and fill movement, for me, I don't view those as being reasons. Whether there's 10 more construction trucks or, 10 less, it's a construction site.
And I respect that. I
Yeah,
do.
just,
You know,
right? So it now is, because like I said, at the end of the day, if there was no longer a septic system, then the topology should look like how it would look without a septic system ever being proposed.
Well, and I have to say, this is where this is located, since it's in the center of town, people driving to school, people driving to ShopRite, it's something everyone's going to notice. And so if it's not right, I mean, like I said, the Chairman Walsh said it before, I think it's sort of in the long run. If it's not nice, there's going to be a lot of critiques about it over and over and over again. So the extra effort to kind of like make it look very nice is going to be important, because I think you will have some complaints about a lot of the trees being taken down, about the interference with like that traffic in the area. So that's kind of why I think we're trying to kind of make this as thorough as possible.
Okay.
Have you, when you've drawn this up, have you modeled this that you can rotate the view with the building on the site? Okay, you're working in 2D.
Yes.
Are you
2D.
planning on doing that?
No, we don't have the capabilities of doing that.
You're working separately from the architect then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, so it's in the back of my mind too. I mean, at this point, you'd probably want to see not something that you had looked at, like drawing, like the photos you gave us, but actually on this site with this topo. What does it actually look like in the model? But
So I can see the berm being desirable to the apartment residents.
I could see it providing a little privacy.
Yeah. And a little, if they're out there playing in the field, a little more protection from the road and all that, yeah.
so the other thing you could do, Chairman Walsh, is take an informal vote of the board and see.
There you go.
There's three options, right? There's
And I'm just reminding people, I mean, we hear all the time
Yeah, I understand.
that you really want to look at
Yeah.
what the existing residents, the impact to the existing residents, and then, make a good site for the new residents, but
Yeah, right. And the three options are plan as is, eliminating the berm, because that was, part of an artifact from the septic system design, eliminating it. Or where I was suggesting is some kind of compromise to try to cut it back so you can minimize the amount of trips of hauling stuff off and kind of blend it in a little bit. So those are the three options.
I'm good with lowering it a couple feet.
Yeah.
Laura, you guys didn't like, I guess my question is, Laura, you guys did not like any berm at all. What do you think about like lowering it?
well, it's better than keeping it the way it is.
Right, no, but I mean, does that practically, I guess my question is, does that practically do anything?
Yeah, and I think, I always support what you guys decide, but if you lower it a little bit and then you increase the vegetation still around the edges of the property, I think goes a long way to helping, the existing surrounding residences.
All right. So what I'm hearing, there's two options. And it's not going to stay the same. It's either going to be lowered completely or lowered to some reasonable median to compromise. That's
What
what
were
I'm
you
hearing.
thinking you would lower it to?
So the top of the, that's what I'm looking at right now, the top of the berm is 439. Maybe with a little hump, 439 and a half. I mean, we could go down to 437, so 2.5 feet.
My recommendation is that it be made lower than that, but it's up to you guys.
Well, I guess then going back, asking the same question I asked her of asking of you, can it be lower than that? Man, you're talking like a couple,
Sure, we can lower it to whatever you want.
But I guess but again, it's also the aesthetics associated with it as well too.
Yeah.
So I guess it's from a practical standpoint, with having it look clean and having it look visual. I mean, is that something that is feasible from your standpoint too?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the line that's coming in from the cut down to the road, that's closest to the property line at the edge of the grading is like 434, 435. So I don't know, at 437.
I mean, I don't have the plans when we had the septic system designed, but we were actually raising those grades a little bit too because of, like the septic system, groundwater separation and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. We were actually lifting that up, like 3 feet. In order to build that sandy material, we were bringing in sandy material to make that work for the septic system.
Right. Yeah, now you're not bringing that in, but
Now we're not bringing it
you
in.
use
but
the
we're
material
using
that's
it-
on site. and
Right,
put it
to
over
put
there.
it there. So,
Yeah.
and we are, it was a good area. We took advantage of it and we built it as high as we could. And then, we had this
Yeah.
discussion and lowered it. And, I'd be happy to lower it some more. I'm not,
So I have a question, just to hopefully my voice doesn't, it can be heard. I'm really thinking this is an aesthetic issue, period, right? There's no functional benefit. We're concerned about how the community responds to it. We want it to be positive. What Osterhood pointed out, I think is really important. Is the architect capable of developing a three-dimensional view of this? So we have some idea of what that looks like?
I can certainly ask him that.
Because I think that's the only part that we're struggling with. And I am unclear on how much vegetation you have in mind in and around the berm. That's
Yeah,
another
it's
thing.
on that plan. If you look
Okay.
at the first sheet there of the site plan.
Yeah.
Luigi, I don't want to digress too much, but I'm looking closer at some of the proposed grading lines of this berm, and the way I read it, it looks like the water's kind of any runoff from this berm would be directed into the underground parking garage. Is that
Yeah.
so? Is there going to be some kind of a storm drain that would be installed there, or what? Two catch basins on the either side of the entry to the. Okay. Gotcha.
That's where you're directing the water, right?
And let's not forget, this is grass, right? It's not
Yeah.
it's impervious where the water's going to
Sure.
be rushing.
Yeah, and you're directing that water with the swale to those catch basins. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, for whatever it's worth, the right height here is around 434.
Yeah,
Right?
435.
It follows that topo
Mhm.
line all the way.
434.
Those topo lines all the way up to the street. But
And then I
But
think, if you can save some clearing in that area and revegetate, then you've got a really strong buffer there for the neighboring community.
The other thing that I'm noticing now too here that we talked about last time is that this tree line
You're almost there.
is actually up in here now. We're actually saving the trees here.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We talked about that. Again, I apologize. It is in your packet.
Yeah.
You can see the tree line on the plans in black and white, but my color up didn't get updated for tonight's meeting. So, the reason I bring that up too is, as you're driving up and down Knott Street, preserving those trees on the western end of the property will sort of block, depending on where you are on Knott Street, that berm. So it's my opinion that, as you're driving up and down Knott Street, your eyes aren't going to go to the berm, they're going to go to the building. But that's my opinion. And I'm willing to work with this board on the height of that berm. I'll check with the architect to see if he can provide something, but maybe tonight, if we can just kind of agree on an elevation, and this way I can tell the architect if he can do it to hit that elevation, so you can see what it might look like if he can do it.
Is that even possible though to agree on an elevation at this point, or is it supposed to be like what the models would look like? I mean, I don't know if is it reasonable to say that. Get into a number just seems without anything further seems a little awkward. 435, no 434.
That's kind of what I was. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
it's
either.
not that. Well, it does not sound like that's something we can do at this point.
I mean, lower than the road is a good starting point.
Okay, so my concern is that the more we can minimize it, the better, because that entry point to the garage with that swale is going to be problematic. And this past week is a great example. And the end of last week, you get a big snowstorm, you get a lot of rain on top of it. Those catch basins are not going to hold up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be really difficult. I think anything to minimize that will be helpful. And not seeing this in 3D because of the way that this site is configured, you might see it differently with the berm. You can extrude those things up and down relatively easily when you're rotating the model around. And when you look at that elevation and you'll see how steep that is going in there with those retaining walls, it may change the opinion of where you see that, just from a maintenance standpoint.
I agree, Luigi. I think for all of our interests, including yours and Mr. Fusco, whoever you need to go to, I think it's the least expensive step to take at this point. Because we can't come up with a number, other than saying, have it be what it was before a septic tank was going in, and that brings you back down to 432.
And there's a lot of merit to having parking underneath the structure.
Yeah.
I mean, you solved the riddle really, really well.
Thank
And
you.
it's a great attribute for that building. And I think it's going to be a really good selling point for it. But, you know, having it being problematic in the winter would be a big deterrent. So if we could avoid it, and maybe the berm is part of the problem.
We also don't want to make it problematic for that neighbor, though, sending the water to him either.
Exactly.
But you can,
Well, no. I mean, you still have your swale,
Yeah,
your
you still have
stormwater
swale.
report, you still have the swale that's there, right? So, I mean, look.
We'll
the
see
main-
what we can come up with on
Yeah.
that berm.
Look, I'll tell you, in my head, the main thing when I look at this is the answer I come up with is I don't know. And when you have that answer, then all you can do is look for more data other than just, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's the missing piece in all this is that, you know, it's probably worth for this property, and I agree with Mr. Derek, 100%. If you can get a 3D rendering. And I know it takes work and all that stuff. At the end of the day, it's.
Okay.
We're not carting any material, we're not cutting any metal, we're not, right?
Right.
So.
Or using the, your knowledge, which you have, and saying,
Yeah.
here's where I can get it down to satisfy your concerns for visual concerns. It'll still work to swale. And I know, there's a cost associated with, modeling and everything. I understand all that. So if you can come in with a recommendation, you can talk to Mr. Diorpino directly, Laura. If you can get that down, I think we're there.
All right. That's what I want to
And
hear.
if Dan has questions, he can call me and let me know what software he's using. But
Okay.
a simple massing model is all we're looking for.
Right.
I mean, we don't need to see every shingle and
Yeah.
the shutters.
Yeah, no, I mean,
But just a simple massing model on how the building
Yeah,
sets on.
I think they've advanced themselves to a point where they can do something. I don't know if they can
Yeah.
do like simulate slopes yet, but I'll ask them.
The HVAC units was the other open item, and showing the basements on the side elevations and cutting the berm back. I think we're there.
Okay.
I know you want to get this going. and
Absolutely.
spring's-
Yeah,
spring's
I want to
getting-
get it off my desk.
Yeah,
And,
you slug this out, and that's kudos
Yep.
to you.
Thank you.
okay. All right, so
Okay,
you'll talk
very
to
good.
David, and
Will
I
do.
appreciate that.
All right. Thanks again.
All right. Everybody, thanks for your patience tonight. I know we had a atypical agenda tonight. So 500 Balltown Road, the rezone application. Anything I'd like to, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. She can review the different types of uses allowed in a neighborhood mixed use, which is in our zoning ordinance, which is available online to be able to access that and take a look at it. But one of the things that I've heard that for me that, doing this for many years is darn if you do or you don't, right? Sometimes if you don't take any action ahead of time and try to be prepared for the what if scenarios, then it's too late. If people came in and said, hey, I did hear, I think one resident today saying the R2 zoning was appropriate, but this isn't something that we've been hearing. R2 zoning, 9,000 square foot lot, you get a developer that comes in, if the state says, hey, we want to get rid of this property, we want to get, we don't want to maintain it anymore, and we got some developers that are interested in turning this into R2, and they're going to take that 9,000 square foot and they're going to get as many homes as they can get in there. You get as many homes as you can get in there. I've heard people say tonight about traffic, okay? There's some commercial intertwined with the mixed use, but when you start packing all those single family homes with, whatever the current numbers are, 2.3 children per family. I know it's the South County schools. I heard tonight people say about the impacts on the schools, but that's a reality with the current zoning. The mixed use is an opportunity to actually minimize the intensity, but also provide services and also provide a spot for our folks that as they age or they like that type of living. Some of the millennials, want to be able to walk down the street and grab something at a convenience store that's integrated into the design. But by being proactive and having this zoning amendment and having it all laid out, when it does get sold, if it does get sold, we come in and we're aligned, and everybody comes in, and the developer, we want to see the developer not develop just part of this. We want to see the whole big picture so that it all works well together. And you look at the location. I heard comments about, why not me or why not here? when as Mr. Twitty talked about the different zoning in the areas, some residential, a little bit basically mixed use in Schenectady there, the commercial shopping with Mohawk Commons. It seemed like, it's a good fit to put this in there and to try to blend into all the different neighborhoods and still have some services and a good lifestyle. That seems like where a lot of communities are going to, like Latham, Malta, and so on and so forth. So the thought is to be proactive here and not wait for something to happen. And then we say, geez, we really don't want our two zoning there. And then it's too late to try to change it at that point in time. And then you have developers coming here saying the same thing you people are saying, right? They're going to come and say, hey, it's zoned R2 and I want to put, X number of houses and this is how many will fit in there and I'm going to shoehorn as many as I can get in there. If I can get some relief on some of the wetlands and maybe mitigate some elsewhere in the town or somewhere else in the community to get more homes in there, that's what they're going to try to do.
If you just take the sizes, and you run the math, that's anywhere from if you account for roads, et cetera, it's anywhere from 175 to 200. It's 9,000 square feet for R2, right?
Just a rule of thumb, right?
Yeah,
there's obviously, roads and drainage and so on and so forth that you got to.
And if the day the state says we've gotten rid of ODHEC, a developer comes in the next day and says, I have an R2 proposal, we're legally bound to hear that all the way through.
Well, and
the zoning
if we take it one step further, I think we potentially face some significant legal issues if we decide at that point we want to change to mixed use, because I think, isn't there something happening now in Clifton Park where they're getting sued because the board decided to change the zoning because accused of changing the zoning in reaction to a proposal
they didn't like. Right.
Yeah, I guess if I can just address the legal issue. And so first of all, I'm sensitive to all of the public comment tonight that talked about why now. And so I'd like to answer that from a legal perspective, which is the town has way more options now than we will at some later date if it's sold by the state to a developer who, as Mr. Oster had said, comes forward, or one of the other board members, and has a proposal that meets the current zoning. Then at that point, we would have a lawsuit that would be very difficult to defend if we tries to change the zoning at that point. So we can have a real discussion, and we appreciate your comments about that you think it's a crappy idea. And if we ultimately decide not, if the board decides to leave it alone, this is still a valuable exercise because we're not going to have all the same options in the future that we have now. So that's all I got in that.
Yeah, and so, however, Laura, I do think a couple of things. I do think that the public, as we always want to be, needs to really be informed of the background, right? I look back at my notes. We started this discussion in 2013. And the first proposal that came up was actually commercial CN designation.
Yeah,
Which was just,
an extension of.
which
one
would
of
end up
the
basically
zonings.
making it commercial.
Yeah.
And with the previous town planner, we started this discussion of changing the zone. Hopefully it's clear that, what Mr. Riggs' lawyer said, that Mr. Hess, sorry. And he was only here a couple of times. Jeez, that's an amazing. But what our legal counsel has said, it's really a matter of options. I don't think anyone here thinks that the state, we have zero knowledge of the state planning or not planning anything relative to that property. It's just that we know that as of today, we have options.
Yeah, there's no discussion right now, sir.
Right. And so, but it's something that's been there that we've been discussing.
And the other thing is being premature. It's great to hear, right? It's an opportunity for everybody to come in and tell us we're missing the mark, and let's hear what everybody has to say. That's what it's all about, about the transparency and listening. And we'll take everything into consideration seriously, and so I think that's important at any time in the process. We'll take consideration. Maybe this doesn't even go forward. This is a work in progress. So we're going to listen to what you had to say. We're going to discuss this and modify it. If we feel that it's appropriate, we'll move it forward to the town board. But then again, the town board is going to have a public hearing. You get an opportunity to be heard. And, whether or not they actually take action on it or not will also be their prerogative. So whole purpose is here is to try to plan and be open about it.
Yeah, and Laura, one last thing from me before you talk. Is the proposed neighborhood mixed-use definition available online?
It is, yes. Under the district regulations, it's letter L. neighborhood mixed use, and that just generally outlines the permitted principal and accessory uses like all the district regulations. All the districts are listed in the district regulation section of the code. And then Article 8E, guidelines and standards for neighborhood mixed use. That is really where it gets down to what is essentially the closest thing the town of Niskuna has, the form-based code. And in the guidelines and standards for the neighborhood mixed-use development, development has to meet a certain mix. So we have that residential lots shall cover no less than 20 and no more than 65% of the property area. Non-residential lots shall cover no less than 5% and no more than 25% of the property area. And open space is no less than 20%. So you're going to mix all those together to come up with the 100%.
And there's a specific designation that talks about commercial being small scale.
Small scale, yeah. It's
Right.
in, yeah.
So I think
No big box stores, no.
Laura, I think maybe if you could just make it clear where this can be found online.
I mean, I can email people, yeah.
It's available online through E-codes. I read
Yeah, E-codes, yeah.
And, but it doesn't specifically define what is non-residential commercial businesses. It doesn't specifically define that. It's kind of like a very nebulous term as to what that means. And also the residential areas, it could be, mixed use also includes R3, which can be apartment complex. So basically what's to stop the Van Thurp apartment complex from just taking that area that's on not in Van Thurp and throwing it over to Odie Heck? Because it is a mixture of apartment complexes and retail stores and stuff like that. But
Yep.
it's not adequately defined. All the other, the zoning districts are properly defined. But the mixed use isn't really defined as to what retail businesses are appropriate in mixed use.
So I'm sorry, none of that was really on the record. I'm just going to reiterate for people who are watching. I think there's some concern from the public that some of the code is not that clear when people are coming in to develop, and there's concern that small scale commercial is not defined, and that the implementation of the code may not be what the town is expecting, the way the code is written. But I do have to say, this is a different type of code than we've had in all of our former zoning districts. They were very Euclidean zoning, very you can have single family homes here, you can have commercial here. And so they're very well defined. A form-based code is not regulating of use as much as form. So there's a certain structure that needs to be there. There's a certain percentage of open space. There's a allowance for clustering. But what you're trying to get with the form-based code is a look and a feel of the community. And so you're going towards what the buildings will look like, not necessarily what's inside of them. And that is what drives what ends up being there. It's different from what we have in our zoning. It's the first time that we've ever actually had a type of zone like that. And that may be why it looks a little bit more nebulous than the rest of our code. It's actually sort of, there's the strict, you put this use here and it does not mix with any of the other uses. And then there's we want this development to look like this, and it has to have these certain mixes and certain types of housing, but it's not necessarily going to be so strict as the other types of zoning. That's just the nature of the way that this zoning was based.
Yeah, that's good, Laura. Thank you. Yeah, because that goes back to my point earlier about wanting whoever, if this were to happen, there's a lot of ifs there, the developer would have this and then would come in with concepts. They wouldn't just come in and say, like to Laura's point, they would come in with a concept and that would satisfy the thumb rules that are laid out, sizes, percentages, and then we would work it, would work the vision to get something that we think would, be appropriate there. Part of the vision is that, you have sidewalks, parking is behind the residences, so you don't have, parking in front, what we see. So a lot of times with townhomes or condos, with driveways right in front. Garbage would be all enclosed, so you wouldn't have garbage cans lighting the street. But if you want to walk out and you want to go up to the corner shop and get a coffee or maybe a small pharmacy that's contained within the development, those would be opportunities for the developer to propose those things. And we'd work with those within again, the vision of this, not so much specific, and then try to see if we could get it work. So it'd be something that would be unique to the town and satisfy everybody, I guess.
But you are making
Yeah.
the assumption.
Yeah, we got to be careful because we're not hearing you, and we're also kind of like in a board discussion part here because we've already had, and I apologize for that, but we just can't. But we hear you, okay? So we can follow up too if you have anything. We're glad to contact the town planner or the planning department, submit emails or anything. This isn't done today. Yeah.
Okay.
You're making the assumption that the property will be sold all 43 acres when it could be parsed.
Can I ask the question as a board member? This is really not supposed to be a public comment. Because this is a question that I have just as a practical standpoint. Clearly the goal is to have a mix of uses and single family, some multifamily uses, some businesses. Some of the concerns I think I am hearing is whether it could then, because it can have multiple parts of it, can individual parts of that be developed at pieces at a time, that somebody comes in, hey, we want to ultimately get to the point where we have retail develop, but we're going to put in a lot of like condos or rental units, and then we'll get to it down the road. So they've satisfied one plank of it, but they may come back to the retail uses, they may not.
Yeah.
Or will it have to be, they have to actually put in the retail units in addition to having or vice versa, that they'd have to have the two of them together.
Yeah. I mean, the planning board has allowed and approved phased development before, but I don't think we've ever issued approvals if you don't essentially own the entire parcel.
Yep.
So, I mean, if the state were to sell a small amount of the parcel, it would have to be subdivided because you can't have joint ownership of a single parcel. So then you're looking at a 10-acre parcel, and you would have to treat that 10-acre parcel with the percentages that are allowed by code. If you wanted to develop that 10-acre parcel in phases and the planning board was okay with the timeline and the phasing, the planning board has allowed that in the past. It doesn't have to allow it, but you can. But what you couldn't do is say, I own this 10 acres, I'm going to put a McDonald's here. And then when the state sells the rest of it, then you can have your residences. You would not be able to do that.
So basically, someone would have to come in with a plan to hit the multiple planks that this is seeking to have be required.
Yeah,
Right.
right. I mean, if the 40 acres all went at once, you would probably see a phased plan because it's pretty hard to develop, 43 acres all at once.
And Laura, in R2, multifamily dwelling is allowed, right?
Is what?
Multifamily dwelling is allowed in R2.
No, nope.
Nope, just single family.
Just smaller lots. Yeah. The only-
And then I heard another comment tonight about environmental concerns, and there's no difference of environmental concerns. There are always going to be environmental impact studies regardless of what the property, whatever, the structure is going to be.
I mean, you do have to conduct a state environmental quality review for a rezone. You also have to conduct it under any development that was proposed for the plan. It's a little bit different when you're doing it for the rezone because changing the zoning map doesn't necessarily create development. I mean, like you say, it could be 10 to 20 years. You could then change the zoning in the time that it takes for development to come in. But you do have to do a seeker. We have run this project through our Conservation Advisory Council for months, and they have issued for the zoning a recommendation that there's not a negative environmental impact for the zone change. That doesn't mean if a very, maybe intense development came in and it wasn't, and it was going to add a lot of traffic or something, that doesn't preclude anybody within the town from saying, yeah, we want to see an environmental impact statement on this proposal. I think that actually Hannaford had an environmental impact statement. But at this time, you're only looking at the impacts of the zone change with the seeker process.
And you do have an EAF for that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been completed and submitted.
Nothing in this would
seeker.
wipe out any of the environmental protections, like the wetland protection.
I mean, a rezone doesn't change any of the protections to the wetland that are there now. It's not a DEC regulated wetland. It's an Army Corps of Engineers likely delineated wetland, but it's going to have the same protections under R2 or neighborhood mixed use. The protections to the wetlands don't change based on the town zoning. That's a federal law.
One thing that I noticed, and people can go through this and see if there are other improvements they would want to suggest, but one thing I would like is to limit the percentage of apartments, not just residential versus commercial, but
so
the size of the apartment units, so many units per apartment, and how much of the land they can actually take up. Because I don't see that in here.
Well, it's the no housing type may exceed 50% of the total housing units in the development. I thought it.
Yeah, and then you do have the
And is it-
dimensional requirements for the non-residential.
Maybe it just isn't as clear as I would like it.
So just to be clear, that it would
intent-
be a separate action. I mean, if the board was to decide that neighborhood mixed use might be the right type of zone, but
But
the
maybe
code
it
that
could
we
be
adopted isn't quite there yet, you would separately
Yes,
that's a different round of code amendments.
but that is something that could be considered.
It can, yes.
Now, also, I know it'd come up about like this, why now? But I will say, when did we start work on the comprehensive plan? To the
2010.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this came up, this is probably one of the early idea. I think it was actually Mr. Darpino even brought it up as we've got to think about this as a possibility in the future.
So it's not a rush. It hasn't been a rush. But I think when we hear comments like, why don't we wait for a developer to present something before we consider a zone change? That is how it has happened in the town of Niskayuna occasionally, but that is not how you want it to happen. That's not the way that it's supposed to happen. Like, if you're looking at the way that you're supposed to be implementing your zoning regulations, you should never do a zone change based upon a proposal that's coming through. When people purchase a property, the expectation is that it'll be developed according to the existing zoning. And if you're creating a development that's requiring a zone change, it's not saying that we haven't seen it, but that is not the way that you want to do it.
The town is responsible for responsible zoning, and that means adjusting the zoning as it sees a need to meet the town's needs. Now, some of us don't find this zone attractive. I would not want to live in such a zone, but I've had people comment to me that they really would like a walkable area where they could live and maybe have their business and maybe do all their shopping and not have to get in a car to do it. For people like that, this would be an answer.
Well, and again, going back to the comprehensive plan, there's various elements about creating a more walkable community, about creating opportunities for variations in housing as well, too. I think for the reasons of people may want, it may be an attractive option, people at certain stages of their life. I don't want to necessarily say as they get older, it could be for those who are younger as well, too. And this was, and it wasn't beyond even this mixed zone, it was about an overall goal for the town set forth in the comprehensive plan.
And less dependent on a vehicle, which again is a way to mitigate traffic.
And Laura, and one of the folks had mentioned something, a couple of things that I'm going to cross the line. One of them was about what's the town's end game, and also relative to what actually is available in the town. I do recall when we started the discussion on this property in 2013. So let me ask it as a question, and you could do the data, you could find the data to back it up. I think there actually are no more available commercial sites in Niskayuna, right? The commercial zones.
Along the river?
I mean, we do have an inventory in the comp plan. I don't think there's like large tracts of commercial land available, but and we do have some industrial that's still open. And I don't know how you'd classify like the office technology, light industrial, that's sort of commercial.
Yeah, but it typically attracts another. I mean, I meant here specifically commercial retail.
Like retail?
You
Yeah.
guys remember? I don't think there actually is I don't
I mean,
think,
that
I
is
don't
in
think
the
there's actually
inventory.
any of that left.
No, I mean, I think it's
we've used-
mostly we see redevelopment. There might be
Yeah.
some RP there might be some RP zoning left that has like a single family home on it.
Much.
Yeah, and like over on the corner of River Road in Provincetown, there's, I think, some places there that are a little, but for the most part, it's
But
developed.
the RP is basically a medical office,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
business office and residential mixed.
That's what I'm saying. It's all built,
Not
but there's some
retail.
places where you could like redevelop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Not
I
very
remember that was
many.
a discussion that came up and so this would be the end of Niskayuna's retail commercial availability.
Yeah, and I don't think the intent of the zoning is to have it be extremely commercial. The intent is to
Have it be mixed use.
Have it be mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and please, anybody out there, send an email to the town planner. It's available on the website. I mean, again, it's R2 now, you want to see commercial like Mohawk Commons extended? I didn't think so personally. That's why, it kind of went here, right? Yeah.
So I'm also going to use this as an opportunity. So I've been living in Niskayuna for 27 years, something like that. It hasn't hit 30. So who decided to put the town center overlay district in the middle of a residential area?
I mean, I think that actually developed like in the 20s. I mean, some of that was like literally in the 20s.
Because I'll be completely blunt and factual to mind my set when I wasn't on the board at the time, but when Mohawk Commons and Mansion Square were getting developed, and I know all the sensitivities, I know everything about the greenery and everything else. But at the end of the day, we kind of took all the big commercial stuff in Niskayuna and we kind of stuck it on one corner, which doesn't seem like such a bad plan to me because you could actually have ShopRite sitting right in the middle of the neighborhood, which was a 1920s action, you're saying.
Well, the corner, I mean, essentially like the corner of Knott Street and Balltown Road
Right.
has existed with commercial properties, I think, since like the 1920s.
But do you mean like Price ShopRite Square?
Yeah.
Too? Like when that was?
No, that
like
was in the 70s and 80s.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
it
sort of-
was a Grand
Well,
Union, right? So it was
yeah, there's a
redeveloped
lot
as
there.
ShopRite or as St. James Plaza at the time.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is that actually having the big box commercial where it currently is not such a bad thing relative to the rest of Niskayuna and the residential nature of Niskayuna. And a neighborhood commercial mixed use, like we're talking about here, fundamentally then grades that out into something more residential as you come into the rest of Niskayuna, given all the constraints that we mentioned before, that there is not, as far as I remember, any retail commercial space available left. Right? Whatever tax revenue we're getting from retail commercial, that's going to be it.
Yeah.
Part of the thinking behind Mansion Square, frankly, was that we did not want a big box there. And there was a time when we were very concerned we were going to have an application and it would have been allowed.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think what the other.
we can look at the code again, right? Because I think we're hearing that there's maybe some things in the code of the actual definition of neighborhood mixed use that we want to make sure we're clear on. And I hope it's clear that this isn't something that's being rushed. It's something that's been considered for almost a decade as that R2 is not potentially the best and most appropriate redevelopment of that parcel if the development was ever going to happen.
Yep.
The town has looked at it through the comprehensive plan and through the general plans that we look to when we're considering the overall goals of the town in the future. And it is the town of Niskayuna that is looking at the rezone. The state doesn't request rezones. They're not subject to our zoning. It's not something that they would ever do. The only time that you would ever see a request for rezone would either be from the town of Niskayuna or from a developer. And I hope that we've made it clear that we would not want to see a rezone application from a developer. It's a little bit too far down the road at that point. I understand the feeling of the cart before the horse, but I can't agree with the cart before the horse because you definitely want to get in there and make sure that the zoning is what you feel is the most appropriate for the town prior to development. If the town as a whole felt that the R2 was a more appropriate zoning and that they are okay with the R2, existing there if it were ever to be developed, is an entirely different conversation that And that's something that's very important to note and be aware of. I mean, if we're, we did collect a lot of public comment for the 2013 comprehensive plan. We did a lot of surveys. We talked to a lot of people. And at that time, we really identified that as not an ideal place to be putting single-family homes in cul-de-sacs, and the way that a lot of town of Niskayuna is developed before, it didn't seem like it was the right sort of mixture of homes and a good use of that property if it was ever to be wiped clean. That was from 2013. So if we hear a lot of comments, and like Kevin's saying, we're off base, but it's certainly coming from a public place, the idea to rezone the ODHEC. The town does have the standing to do that in a code. That's actually, the town is the one that can initiate any zone change. I think we can clarify more what the neighborhood mixed use means. Again, we have completed the seeker. The town board is the acting party on the seeker. It is not the planning board. We do review the seeker forms that have come through the CAC in our recommendations to the town board, but the town board is the ultimate acting authority on the environmental quality review. The county has reviewed the plans and the zone change application and deferred to local jurisdiction. So the county didn't have a lot to say about the zone change. They basically felt like we have the right to decide on that, and they didn't. They deferred to us. I know we do talk about Belltown Road a lot, and I do want to reiterate, traffic planning, traffic standings, if you do widen Balltown Road, it's a well-known fact that the cars will travel faster. If you widen roads, cars travel faster. So, it's a balancing act. There's a ton of cars on Balltown Road, and we certainly don't want them to bleed out into Old Niskayuna, but I grew up in the area, not in Niskayuna, but I think that Balltown Road as a 2-lane road is already very difficult for walking and biking, and we've heard that. And I think the town really has to decide if they want to make a Route 7 sort of north-south barrier to neighborhoods, or if we want to adjust Balltown Road head on and say, yeah, we want to put walkable neighborhoods right on Balltown Road. We want to slow the cars down, and we want to figure out how to keep them on Balltown Road and not in Old Niskayuna neighborhoods. My personal preference would be that we keep Balltown Road 2 lanes, slow them all down, and keep them out of Old Niskayuna. There's various ways that you can do that.
Laura, you also attend a Capital District Transportation Council meetings. These types of things come up
We
with the
talk about
concerns
that
with
kind of stuff
Balltown
all the
Road.
time.
So it isn't like it isn't being worked. We're just turning, our cheek to it. And I think we also heard tonight about the concerns about Route 7, right? 4 lanes. So I heard 2 things tonight in Balltown Road: make it 4 lanes and not. 2 different reasons. So, I agree with Laura. Imagine having, I could see where a turn lane would help in certain areas, but making it 4 lanes would just devastate it. Make it just what we don't want. It would turn it into a Route 7. Trying to keep the traffic with all the improvements at the bridge and the roundabout. It does move a little bit better. It does move quite a bit better from a timing issue. Of course, it is harder to pull out at some locations at certain times as the traffic continues to move. So there's not that pause where it's backed up. But
by the same token, our philosophy has been to try to not add any more
try
traffic
not
into
to add more.
Balltown,
Yeah.
which affects it. But again, if we develop for that space that one of the gentlemen mentioned, north of CVS and between CVS 6, if somebody comes in with an R2 proposal, right? It's R2 over there, right?
It's R2.
Yeah, it's
Yes, it
R2.
is. Yep.
Do that.
Yeah, we're legally bound to hear that out.
Mhm.
If it adds 40 cars or 50 cars or 100 cars, more than likely that I can say that we are bound to hear that out to the end. So
And
maybe we should think about changing the zoning there, spot changing it.
I will note that there are residents on Balltown Road who very much consider themselves part of Old Niskayuna.
Yeah. Oh, they
Traditionally
are.
it is.
Yeah, they are. They were built at the same time.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Laura. Did you have some other comments?
I'm just looking through my notes.
But basically tonight, that's what we want to hear. So we've got some stuff to think about. And I think one of the key points, Laura, you just hit it, was making sure if we need to add any verbiage to the zoning ordinance, chapter 220, to make it clear. That's something we consider doing also. But there's no action tonight planned, and we have no action, I'm sure, for our next meeting. We got to soak on what we've heard, and we're gonna have some working meetings and discuss it.
Mhm.
is where it's at.
And you can always come and discuss under privilege of the floor, and you can always contact the planning department, and we will pass on all information to planning board, town board, and anybody that you guys would want the information passed on to.
Laura, you've kind of already addressed it in how you talked about why this isn't, why now, and how it really has been developing throughout the comprehensive plan and over the course of a decade. But I know someone specifically mentioned the term spot zoning. So I was hoping you could just talk briefly about how this petition for a zone change is different from what someone might refer to colloquially as spot zoning.
Well, spot zoning is traditionally when you're taking, a small parcel that's surrounded by a single type of zoning and changing it into something that isn't characteristic to the community. So, if there was, a corner and all four corners were residential and there was nothing adjacent to it and you wanted to make one of the corners commercial, generally the answer would be no, because there's nothing commercial around there, right? If this is something that we actually saw on the Van Antwerp rezone, where they actually came with a proposal and a rezone, which is not what you like to see, but they wanted to continue the CN zoning from WRGB down to CVS. So it's not really a spot zone if you're continuing the area, if you're continuing what the use is adjacent to you. I apologize, off the top of my head, I don't know what the zoning situation was exactly on Console Road for that to have been labeled a spot zone. I don't know. I know the zoning changed and there was a PUD involved. And so I don't know why that was called spot zoning in particular, but in this instance, the property isn't surrounded entirely by residential or commercial. So it's not a spot zone because you're not taking a property and isolating the zoning. It's not surrounded entirely by residential or commercial. It can be either way. You're taking similarities to the adjacent zones and bringing them into the zone that you have there. And
Well, for this parcel, isn't it identified in the comprehensive plan as a good parcel for this new zone? Like, wasn't that one of the, so when we're talking about spot zoning, the issue is picking out a parcel and changing it from what your comprehensive plan says. So if the comprehensive plan specifically identifies this as a good parcel for that new zone, then by definition, it can't be spot zoning. It's part of our plan.
And the parcel is as large as some neighborhoods.
And I'm sure the comprehensive plan goes into this in further detail, but just dovetailing on what Mr. Hess and Laura have said, I tend to feel that being that this is at a crossroads of many different types of zoning, the neighborhood commercial, the varying densities of residential, the city of Schenectady, and two busy roads in Console and Balltown, what better place to have this type of form-based zone that can kind of meld all of those together and allow for people to avail themselves of all the different benefits of these different zones and do it on foot, which, who knows, potentially could result in traffic calming, at least in some areas of the existing commercial zones, where you can now get from Hannaford to Vent Fitness on foot, potentially.
be a
Just to
goal.
back that up, if I recall, mixed use wasn't a zoning term. Our conversations about feedback we heard and knowledge we have of walkability and the goals we had in the comprehensive plan resulted in us trying to find something that would be a good fit that turned out to be mixed use.
Yeah.
It didn't go in the other way around. It started with what would be the ideal
Yeah.
outcome of the research we did through the comprehensive plan and current trends of the younger generations wanting to live, work, walk, not have a drive. Okay.
And that's really the point of zoning. You're supposed to find the best use for the land.
Before it gets developed.
Before you have an application, yeah. You got it.
200 houses.
All right, so next action is basically contemplate the comments. We'll have some more discussion at following meetings. We'll put on the agenda.
Yeah, yeah, I think we can, pull the code out and take a good look at it, as part of our recommendation. Mhm.
And, we do appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Glad to see you all turn out. Continue to give us feedback, again, through the website, through phone calls. Check the website. It's a wealth of information. The agenda is posted, the meetings, so you know what's coming up. So, we don't want to surprise anybody. We're going to have the discussion. Just take a look. We meet twice a month, and it's usually at least posted the Friday before the Monday.
Yeah.
Pretty much the agenda, so you'll know ahead of time. You come on in, privilege of the floor, even if we don't have a public hearing, and we'll listen to what you have to say. We'd love to hear from you.
And you can watch the meetings online at both the town site and Open Stage Media.
They're also live on YouTube now.
Okay? All right. More to follow. All right, Laura, we'll move on the agenda here. I appreciate everybody's patience tonight. Thank you all for coming. So reports tonight, Laura, do you have anything at all?
Nope. I think a whole lot of us are signed up for the Saratoga training, so I'm very excited about that, February 4th. And hopefully the weather's good and we come back with lots of new skills.
Excellent. Okay. And I think we'll just keep moving into commission business here. We've got a long night tonight. Mr. Doss, do you have anything
Being out
tonight?
of order, I thought that I would have an opportunity to question what the board has said, but I haven't had the opportunity. I've had my hand up a number of times.
I understand.
And it wasn't responded to. So in essence, you're saying what I have to say is inappropriate, all right?
We'll be here in 2 weeks.
One other comment, all right? I hear a lot of
This is
discussion about negativity and positivity.
This is not in order.
Sir.
This is not in
That's
order,
why I didn't, you're welcome to come back and privilege of the floor. We'll listen to you, or if,
I've got art years.
yeah, please come back to privilege of the floor. We have a meeting, and next meeting is February 11th. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Back at another meeting?
Yeah, privilege of the floor and speak anything planning and zoning.
I can't speak at today's meeting, but I can come to the next meeting.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you can
process.
also come to the
Public
planning
hearing during
department.
privilege of the floor.
Why can't I speak today?
Because we're having a board discussion. It's, the privilege of the floor is over with, okay? So I appreciate it.
You're saying it's your privilege to pick out who you have the conversation.
I didn't want to have the conversation with him. We told him to stop at Mr. Oster, so I don't want to argue with you, sir. I appreciate your input.
I really don't understand the protocol, okay? But I know why we were shut out in the first place.
All right, thank you for coming, sir. Okay. Where is it? Mr. Diopino, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just quickly, on Tuesday this past week, I gave a presentation on the Architectural Review Board outline to the town board. About 12 slides, quick outline. There's a copy of it in Laura's office if anyone's interested in seeing it. Just laid some groundwork, so.
You can watch it online.
Yep.
It was the first time that our Go Live worked.
Oh.
And you can just go to YouTube and type in Town of Niskayuna, and the town board meeting is there and live. Your slides didn't come out particularly well because we had some problems with the camera angles, but you can watch
How many
it.
slides, was it extensive, the package, the slides?
No.
Is that something we can, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I can
It was
email
I
you
fine.
have
guys
a
the slides
PowerPoint that
too.
was made a
Yeah.
PDF. She can email it to everybody.
Yeah, even if it's the small where you put just the summary slides, whatever.
No, I can email you the presentation.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for doing that. Ms. McPartlin?
No.
Mr. Oster, or excuse me, Mr. Khan?
I don't want to buck the thing. Just one question, but what is the decisive action to actually get the architectural board approved?
Well, we've been discussing that because when we were talking about it at the planning board level, we were thinking that we would implement it in the zoning code, which probably long-term is what you'd still need to do. But the town board was discussing appointing the committee, like very similar to a complete streets committee. So you can appoint them with a resolution and outline what their duties are by resolution. That's how they appointed the complete streets committee and the tree council and the CAC actually. So the CAC is not even in our code. So we can proceed down that route if the town board wants to. And it seemed like that was what they were looking at doing at first. And then when we're doing our zoning code amendments, we'd probably look at incorporating that language in there, but it doesn't necessarily have to wait for the process of our zoning code amendments because, that's a long.
I mean, for whatever it's worth, Mr. Arpino's, with Mr. Peleshi's, that interaction shows why I think such a committee is a good thing to do. And we should just
Good thing.
do it, right? We can
Yeah.
modify
I think
the T's and C's on that later, but.
I think that that was the general consensus,
Right.
is that we would appoint them with a resolution as long as that, and actually it doesn't even need a planning board recommendation. So we're probably going to talk about it at the Economic Development Committee meeting, what the next step is for the town board. But you could see action on that relatively quickly if they wanted to.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gold?
Just I'm really hoping for good weather for the 6th. Because if it's bad weather, I cancel out.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
I don't drive in bad weather anymore. if I can help it.
Doesn't your car drive for you?
I don't trust it.
So fun.
It breaks for me.
Okay, and I have no comments. So motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Khan, second by Ms. Gold. We're adjourned, and thank you very much. It was a long night. Jeffrey, thank you for your presentation.
Good
Laura,
presentation.
appreciate everybody's support. Did you have some, oh, you're waiting for Laura? Sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you for sticking around. Are you out of town, from out of town too tonight?
Yeah, I got a 6 a.m. flight.
Oh,
Oh, goodness.
yeah, you gotta get this done.
6 a.m. flight to where?
Dallas Fort Worth to Atlanta.
I'm sorry, but that Janetti thing is the most inappropriate I've ever seen someone get at a meeting before.
I know.
Like to charge
Good luck.
the.
Good luck.
charge the-
Welcome to town.
I mean, and not only that, he of all people should know better.